My name is Amelia Tanetti. I run the Genius Hour here at 9 o'clock every Friday. I am a behaviorist, not a therapist, a behaviorist, which I help you identify the behaviors that are either moving forward or holding you back. And I can quickly, from stage, give you a behavior modification tool so that you can start moving, start healing, and really start closing the gap between where you are and where you want to be. So I will say over and over again, everything that you desire in life, doesn't matter if it's for time, money, focus, freedom, happiness, joys, relationships, whatever, what is standing in the way between where you are and where you want to go is a behavior. It is not that you need more money. It is not that you need more time. It's not that you need another degree. It's none of those things that we like to think it is. What it actually is a behavior. And so I can dial in. We do this every week. There's a lot of people who have sampled what I'm talking about to give you really good stories about how this is in fact the truth, that it is a behavior modification that you're needing. So today I want to dive into really those critical moments that happen in life, right? And those are awesome opportunities for us to really dial into who we are and what we're really here to do, our purpose and our identity. And there's lots of stories that are out there, that I'm sure a lot of you've already read about, right? We all kind of heard about, Michael Jordan, who was not good enough for his high school basketball team, and hence they were wrong, right? But it changed the trajectory of his life. Constantine from American Idol, for people who watch that, he placed sixth in American Idol and went on to have one of the best careers out there. He's the only one who's been on Broadway. He did Rock of Ages, on and on and on and on, right? Huge opportunities opened up, even though he actually didn't win. I love the Dyson vacuum cleaner story, right? That product failed notoriously for like 15 years. He finally made it hit in Japan, made enough money to be able to do a global campaign. And now Dyson is basically a household name for most people. Same thing for J.K. Rowling's, right? She was a mom. She was getting divorced. She was depressed. Writing was an outlet for her, just for her to try to keep her sanity. She went to 12 publishers. All the publishers said, absolutely not. Nobody's going to want to read about these fairy tales. It actually was the daughter of Bloomsbury, all right, his 8-year-old daughter, who read the transcript and said, oh my God, this is amazing. And they took a chance on it. And so these events, whether it's an event that happens in your life that moves you into your lane, or if it's a life event that happens that gets you off a lane that's not working and onto something else, these moments, if we can dissect them and understand what is it that they're telling us, can absolutely give us that oomph, right? The momentum into the life that we're meant and born to do. I can say that for myself 1,000 times. I think one of my favorite songs of all time is Unanswered Prayers by Garth Brooks, because I cannot tell you how many times I prayed for something. I really wanted something. It didn't happen. And now, hindsight, I understand completely why it didn't happen. But at the time, I would have swore to you that that was what I wanted, that was my life, that that's what I was meant to do. But it's always bigger than we can ever possibly imagine. Life can be more than you can possibly dream. And the only way to get there is if you're decoding the things that are happening in the here and now, right? Identifying the pattern of things that have happened and what that means. And so I think that is one of my greatest gifts, is to reflect for you your current thought state, to reflect for you what the pattern is, so that you can choose if it is or isn't working for you. Does this sound interesting to dive into for the next 45 minutes?
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
So does anybody want to chime in on a life event, right? And again, there's no such thing as good and bad. There just is, right? So the first thing you have to understand about behavior is that when you put judgment on it, that this is a good thing or this is a bad thing, you're already paddling backwards, right? Information is information, and we put emotion onto it. There's actually no emotion in action. There is no emotion in the tactical. There's no emotion in what is happening. We put emotion onto what is happening. And if you want to really be able to analyze and be more efficient and more bullet, like that bullseye onto where you want to go, you must remove what you are putting on to the situation, right? Because that is where you end up getting into your own spiral, you get into your own way. It's by taking a look and identifying what the pattern is without emotion and then going from there. Can I get an amen there?
Amen.
So I spend most of my time when I'm helping others to remove the emotion that they are putting on what's happening, right? Because we justify why things are happening, right? We say, oh, well, this is happening for this reason or for that reason, and this relationship worked or this relationship didn't work. And then we give a reason to it. That reason will derail you. 100% will derail you. And so that's where these behavior reflections are so powerful. So let's talk about a life moment. If anybody wants to kind of jump out here and just kind of tell me something that has happened or is happening, and I can show you how this works. Okay, not everybody quiet at the same time.
I'm happy to volunteer.
Who was, yes, Em, I heard you, but who was right before you?
Amazing Angel Lee.
Oh, well, hello, amazing. Of course. Go first.
Go first.
Okay. So I'm going to
I'm
share.
gonna share, and I would love to get this
feedback.
feedback.
So
I have been the
caregiver of my mother, who was actually part of my childhood trauma. So this has been a traumatic experience and most definitely challenging, but I am doing it because, of course, we honor our parents. So one of the questions that I always used to have, how do you honor parents who were abusive?
Oh, I love that.
That's Amazing Angel Lee.
I love it. So first of all, you made an assumption. Okay, so let's first take a look at the assumption that you made. So you made an assumption that it is some obligation that we need to take care of our parents. No, that's a choice. We are not obligated. Our womb is not connected. We do not have to take care of anybody unless we choose to. So that's the first thing to understand, is that you're putting a rule into place that only becomes a rule if you choose it to be. Does that make sense?
It does.
Right. And so in that choice, if you feel an internal root, right, a root feeling that it is your choice, it's not your responsibility, but it is your choice to take care of your parent, then you have to understand, what is it that you're seeing, feeling, or knowing for why it is playing out this way. And so just so that you and I can connect a little bit, I had one of the most horrific childhood of all time. Like, you could write a movie about it. I would wish it on nobody. But the fall down, get up of survival to literally survive that environment honed in me skills that I have transferred very effectively into business, right? And so without that childhood, I would not have the career I have today. And so there's a book called The Soul's Code, right? Which is a very difficult book to read. But it talks about how your soul already knows. It already knows what life it's picking. It knows the fall down, the get up. It knows its pain. It already knows everything, right? So souls are kept in the Gulf. If you're a Christian, that's like, this kind of story. And then your soul picks its life and its journey. And as it gets here, it forgets. And then these life moments reteaches us what we already know. That's why everything that we need for our life, we already know, and we're reconnecting to that knowing. And so for you have to ask yourself, what is it that you now know from those experiences? And how do we now transition or repurpose that knowing into the greater good for all? Does that make sense when I say that out loud?
Yes.
So then the question becomes, what do you know and you take for granted? Because for you, it's your state of normal, right? You survived something that if we put somebody else in your shoes, they would probably crawl over into a fetal position and die, right? So you know something and you've learned something. That's the gift. That's the reason, if you're looking for a reason, why did my life not be kind of, whatever, beaver cleaver or whatever, although I've never met anybody who's had a beaver cleaver life yet. And all the things that I've ever done, I've never met that person, right? But so why did you learn what you learned? And then is that how you are monetizing in your current day or your future self? So that's a question. What you learned, are you using it?
I most definitely am, because it's actually a testimony for someone else about forgiveness, and that's how I'm using it. But I use it as the foundation to reach someone else.
Okay, so that if forgiveness is your genius, then how is forgiveness present in the tactical side of your business or your career?
Again, I use it as my foundation, that I didn't allow this traumatic experience to prevent me from moving forward with my business is actually catering to the senior community. And so I asked again, because I had someone to instill in me about how to forgive and still do what how I was really actually brought up from my grandmother, that you still will honor honor that.
So do you do caregiving for the seniors? Like what is your okay?
It's
Perfect.
called the Angels Helping Hands, and it is caregiver and concierge services in their home.
Awesome.
So yes, I do, and that's why I was saying I didn't allow that to hinder me from actually operating in that industry.
Okay, so now let me just give you something to consider, right? So you have a distribution, right? Because the senior community, the caregiving of senior community is its own industry. Can we agree on that?
Can we agree on that?
Yes.
Okay, so
So
in that industry, there is a whole mess of individuals
who
do
who do
not
know how to make peace with their parents.
Yes.
And so
And so if you had a service
that allowed them to walk through a forgiveness
with
their
parents that are sitting in the home,
if you had a workshop where you can teach forgiveness, remember forgiveness goes both ways,
right?
You have the senior
who hasn't forgiven themselves,
and then you have
the child,
right,
who doesn't know how to forgive the parent.
That is
very rich material
for you
to be able to serve.
I love it. I love it. And you just confirmed it, because it's been, I'm actually been pondering about opening a room for caregivers who have actually gone through that, because I've had a lot of feedback with, I don't know if I could have done what you're doing, just because of that reason of their unforgiveness with their parents. So I appreciate that.
Let me make it easier for you, right? So reach out to any of the services that service addicts. Right. So that could be Alcoholics Anonymous, AAA, that could be adult children of addicts, right? For people who are in that service, right? They're there because they are fighting some sort of pain. That pain is usually linked to forgiveness. So instead of you creating it from scratch, which is going to take you too much time and too much money, offer an additional service to somebody who's already servicing those who are looking to heal. You can do your first one or two for free as a use case. Grab those testimonials, and now you're in business.
Wow.
Like
I
said, everything between where you are and where you want to go is a behavior. So this is a behavior, right? Which is a forgiveness behavior that can get hooked on a current distribution with additional content with your real life experience. Helpful?
Yes, it most definitely was. Thank you.
I love pivotal moments, right?
That's every moment that happens to our life, good or bad or indifferent, is really just a stepping stone into becoming the best version of ourselves. So what I like to do here is decode what is happening for you, and then I'm a big action-oriented, tactical kind of individual. So I'm going to lead you to the next 3 steps. That I think is a gift, right? To help you decipher the noise and all of the clutter and just go to the next couple of steps.
Absolutely.
Who's next?
Is Jackie here? Amelia, I think you had said me, right?
Go ahead, Yassine.
Okay, so let me tell you my challenge, and then if you say that doesn't apply, I can give you another one. So
we're going to move quickly,
though.
Okay,
So
we're
no long storytelling. We're going to move quickly because we've got lots of people in the queue. Yeah. Okay. So I've been feeling very guilty that I want to move back to the US, and that's going to be way better for me personally. But I had to move back to Turkey 2 years ago. But with your words, not had to, but chose Sudan because my dad was diagnosed with cancer. And I feel like if I will move back to the US, I'm going to be, I also grew up in the culture that I should take care of my parents. I love my parents, but I feel like I will be like leaving them alone. And so like instead, yeah, if you want to ask me more questions, I can, but I think that has been the struggle for me.
I get it. And I know a lot of your history,
right? We've spoken before.
No
parent.
I have never met a parent
in my life
that want
their children to suffer
for them.
They don't.
We have
children, and we hope that they know better than we do. We hope that they have more resources than we do. We hope that they find love. We hope that they find their purpose. We hope that they're safe
and that they
go about the world
being the
best humans that they can.
We do not have
children
so that they come and suffer alongside us and just stifle their life for 10, 20, 30 years waiting for them to die and then go live. That isn't a life. And so if you need to make choices
so that you can have your life,
that you can find your happiness,
then you need to lean into that without guilt.
The guilt is a
negative emotion.
That guilt
will never serve you or anybody else. It's not going to serve your parents either.
But you must choose you
because
your
parents
do not
want you to suffer.
And so waiting
whatever 10 years, 20 years is going to only create bitter, anger, and resentful towards your parents.
So they're
full-grown adults.
You've got to do
the best that you can.
But success is the greatest gift.
The more you're successful, the more you can serve others.
I say
make a lot of money and do phenomenal things with it.
But if you're both drowning, nobody is being served. And so you have to examine is your desire
to come to the state to better yourself and better your business, is that real or is that a story that you're telling yourself? Because a lot of times people change their locations and the problems just follow right along with you. That's people who say, oh, I'm going to go on vacation to fix my marriage. No, the vacation will not fix your marriage. You got to fix your marriage where you are. You got to fix your business where you are. You got to fix who you are right now where you are. Because the relocation isn't going to change what's going on inside of you.
Thank you. I totally agree. Just one question. Is there do you have some practical tips to get rid of this guilt? Because the only thing I tell myself is also that I will also be in a better position to help my parents then. But is there something, but this guilt continues. So is there anything I can do about the guilt?
Sure.
Practical tips?
Yeah. Is it working
for you?
Is it helping
you
be
the best person? Well, then let it go.
How?
It's
no different than choosing not to eat the entire pizza.
Right?
I know if I want to eat the entire pizza.
I really want to.
I can eat the entire pizza.
I choose not to. So
me too, by the way. Me too. I love pizza.
See, Rocky, you and I got to split it.
It's a choice.
Happiness is a choice. Not feeling something or feeling something is a choice. And then it becomes a practice. Right? So today you have a emotional attachment to guilt. Right? And you're using that as an excuse for a whole lot of stuff. So today you're going to choose not to feel guilty, and you're going to choose happy instead. So fill the gap with another emotion. Practice it
again this afternoon. Practice again tomorrow morning. Keep choosing not guilt. Choose happiness. And it will become your natural state. You've been choosing guilty so long, you think it's part of you.
Choose differently.
Oh, thank you so much. I never thought about it that way. I thought it would come naturally, and that
Nothing
comes
naturally.
naturally.
Nothing
comes naturally.
Money
Money
doesn't come
naturally. Happiness doesn't come naturally. Success doesn't come naturally.
Wisdom
Wisdom doesn't come naturally. Nothing comes naturally unless you intentionally put it into place.
It's a choice.
It's a choice.
Okay, perfect. Then I'm on the right way. Thank you.
Hi, who is next?
Amelia, it's so funny that you said that. It's Miku. It reminds me of the conversation that you and I had 2 weeks ago. Hi, big sister. But remember when I called you and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm just so frustrated. I feel so offended. Like this person did this. And you're like, no, stop. You chose to feel frustration in that moment. You chose to be offended in that moment. You could go ahead and rename that exact same emotion with excitement that now you have seen them for who they truly are, and you can stop pouring into and wasting your time on that situation. So I love that so much. And Yeshua, I hope that resonates with you, is when we're approached with something, we start to feel guilt, we feel shame, we feel frustration, to look at it a different way and rename that emotion. What is the positive counterpoint to that that's going to help you move forward instead of getting stuck where you don't want to be?
And the other thing, Niku, is to realize that those are boosts of energy. Right? So like if you're angry and you think you're angry with me, you have an energetic charge. Well, I can take that energetic charge and I can invest it anywhere I want. I can invest that energy you're trying to throw over here to defend myself, or I can use it for my intention and my purpose of who I'm becoming. So if you learn how to stay within your power, regardless of what's happening around you, you are the most powerful person in the room. You can't make me anything. You can't make me angry. You can't make me upset. You can't make me happy. You can't make me sad. You can't make me anything. But I can use the energy that you are manifesting and use it for good. And so this is the constant lesson that I'm trying to demonstrate in our Genius G100 is exactly what you like. You called me and said, this is how I'm seeing something, and I'm feeling this. Well, that energetic charge, that fuel of energy, we reinvested it into something that was more in line with what you actually really want, because you don't really want to feel all that other stuff. And so it's just a power tool that I was teaching you. Is Susie here by any chance? Is Susie here? I can't see if I can see if Susie's here. I don't see her. I just did this last night for Susie. She called me because she was having a problem at work.
I am here.
There you are.
Hey, girl. We just did this together, right? We just did
We're
this
good.
together.
So tell me about
tell me what you learned.
I learned that putting away your emotions and not taking anything personal gives you really a clear mind on how to handle things, how to approach them, how to really connect with other people, even though you're having kind of a struggle to connect with them.
Right. So what we
did in our exercise is you were giving your interpretation of an emotion to somebody else. And we don't actually know at all what they think or what they feel. We're guessing.
That's right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So instead of guessing, we stayed in our side of what we actually know. We know that you can show up any way you choose. And based on how you show up, the other person is going to react differently. So then you stayed in the power, not her.
And the outcome was actually so beautiful and amazing that at the end of the conversation and the meeting that we had each other and we complimented each other. It was life-changing.
Because Susie, you are beautiful and amazing. All I did was bring out your true essence and remove the programming that other people have handed you. Other people have handed you shit. We did not serve her with that. That we let go of, and we served her with your beauty.
That's true. That's true. That's absolutely true. You know the story.
But this is the
it feels really good. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
It feels really good to reconnect with that essence, that part of me. And it felt really natural, like I was not forcing it.
Well, because it is your most natural
state.
The other stuff that you
feel,
the heartache, the struggle, just like for everybody else, that's not our natural state. It never is. And so when you're feeling like you are paddling backwards or climbing, up a mountain and it's just never ending, it's a way for you to stop and analyze what is really going on, because our natural state is flow. So if you're not flowing, you're going in the wrong direction, or there's something that you're trying to carry that is not yours. That's why behavior modification and behavioral reflection is so powerful. It happens immediately. Right? With the conversation that I had with Niku and Susie, it didn't take them 4 weeks of therapy. It took 15 minutes on the phone with me.
It was a short period of time when that it took for me to realize that I was just camouflaging myself with all the negativity that is going on around me instead of being myself. So I appreciate that, Amelia. Thank you.
I love it, right? And so it sets you up for power next time, and next time, as you start to choose what works for you and move away from what doesn't. And it's just a skill set that I teach. It's just a skill set. And that is what really creates scale. Right? The reason why I continue to grow and I continue to do things that people find interesting is I stay in the most authentic portion of Amelia. And when people try to put their version of Amelia on me, I hand it back to them, because that is not who I am.
Definitely. I think that's a huge struggle for most of us, to set a boundary among our essence and really protect our true identity,
Well, the first part of that is because most people do not know what their true identity is. They're lost. They change it like underwear. Every day there's somebody else, right? And same thing too with their products and services. Spray and pray. They offer everything. They are all things to all people. They're lost in who their identity is. And then when they do see the reflection of who they actually are, it's a practice to say, do I choose who I am? Is that working for me? Or do I need to choose something different? And if you're going to choose something different, the stepping stones are not going to be innate. Because if you knew, you would already have them in your life. Because you don't know, you keep repeating the same thing over and over and over. It's called a vicious cycle. And so a behaviorist is somebody who can then give you an alternative behavior to get a different outcome and start moving you on that lane to become your highest and best self, because you're choosing what is or isn't working for you. I didn't choose it for Susie or for Niku. They chose it. All I did was show it to them. Who else is there today?
Jackie's up next.
Hello, Jackie.
Hey, gorgeous lady, you are on fire. Thank you so much for all the wisdom I'm hearing here today.
That just means I'm older than dirt.
That's all that means. I'm older than dirt.
You and me both, sweetheart. I think the message
The language.
Basically, my biggest issue has always been procrastination. When I have projects to do, something to submit, whatever it is, it's always a last minute thing. Always I get it in and I crush it when I get it in. But just that lead up to it, I doubt myself and it just takes me forever. And then at the last minute, I have to do it. I have to get it in. And, like I said, I crush it. So how can I get over that, please? Thanks, Amelia.
No worries.
This is an easy one.
Believe it or not, this is a really easy one. Have you ever been so hungry? Like you skip breakfast, you skip lunch, and it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and you're just like ravenous.
Oh yeah.
Okay. This is what procrastination is. It is a way for you to store a huge jolt
of energy
that you
have then learned causes you to propel or move forward.
Right?
Right?
So
and so underneath procrastination are two things. One, fear.
And so
you sit in fear
for a long period of time. You let that energy store, and then you bam, out
of the gate.
And that is
the pattern that you have learned that to date has taken you to wherever level of success you are right now.
And so
you're addicted. It's an adrenaline addiction
to that
charge of, oh my God, it's due tomorrow morning.
It is a
learned behavior.
Does that make sense?
Does that make sense?
Totally, yeah.
So now that you can see, right? Because I'm just
reflecting back, which you already know.
That
you learned when you were really young,
and you got
addicted
to the high
of that stored energy,
and then
used it to be very productive to overachieve.
But you can
use that same trick
and
not procrastinate,
because what
you're addicted to is the energy jolt.
So what if
I showed you how to do little energy jolts all day long in what we call power and protective hours?
So you're
always
productive.
Yes, please.
Right? Do you see the difference
between what you think procrastination is and from a behavior standpoint what procrastination actually is?
It's stored energy.
Wow, I have never thought of it like that. I've just thought of it as myself needing a kick in the backside, but always leaving stuff to the last minute and getting it done.
Well, and here's the other thing that's different, right?
The way you describe it
is negative. The way I describe it
is powerful and positive.
Because you have
the ability to create energy out of no energy
and use it
to propel forward.
That's a
very powerful tool.
Wow, that's amazing. Any tips on how I can do that?
We have lots of them. If you grab any of the G100
girls, the sisters,
this is the work
that we do every day, every week. This is what we're doing. They're learning these behavior modifications based on their own behavior
for good.
So
grab one of the girls.
And absolutely get more information. I mean, this is what I'm doing. I am transferring my knowledge that I've learned as a behaviorist for 35 years onto 100 other people who are going to do amazing things in the world with it.
And so if I can teach you
and you can do good,
this is a
world is a better place.
Anybody who's
listening, how would I find one of those people in my ear?
Most of them
are here on stage. So Carrie, Tara, Susie, Niku. I mean, So flash your mic if you're part of the Genius G100.
There you go.
All those women.
Alicia,
yep.
All those women are part of the
whatever. And so they are becoming behaviorists.
Wow, thank you so much, and I will be reaching out. I'm forever grateful. Thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
How many people here
just between
that tool of understanding procrastination? Tell me if that was helpful for anybody else who's listening.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. You got it.
Yes.
Yep.
So
and it was so easy to understand.
That's just one example, right?
Of
the difference between therapy,
which there's nothing wrong with therapy. I'm in therapy constantly. I'd have to be. So therapy is a different process than identifying behavior and learning what a modification tool is, right? So for most entrepreneurs, we want immediate gratification.
Like I don't want you to
ask me how I feel about something because I don't care about how I feel about something. I want to know what I can do differently to get a different outcome.
And that need is very much fueled by behavior. And so that's why I like to come here at 9 o'clock, Genius Hour, every single Friday. We're here. And that is what I want to do for you. I want to be able to show you your behavior and then give you a tool to start doing something differently. But again,
it's your choice.
I'm just
the mirror.
Who else wants
to chime in?
Amelia, this is Monica, if I may.
Hello,
Miss Monica.
So I believe we always have a choice. That's what I teach my clients as well. And my question is, where is the line? And what I mean is, I spent decades numbing my feelings and my emotions so that I would not feel the negative ones, and basically paving over them with positive thinking, which I now know didn't serve me. So where's the line between feeling an emotion, then flipping it around, recalibrating, and making a different choice? How do we avoid in ourselves and when we help other people the tendency to overdo it and invalidate or numb that nasty, yucky initial feeling? Am I making sense?
Yes, 100%.
100%.
So
let's consider that.
What if nothing?
What if nothing is negative or yucky?
What if what
we're feeling is merely a directional guide?
That even the most yucky things
that you're currently identifying as yucky
was a stepping stone to get to somewhere else. That there isn't
any good or bad or positive or negative or happy or sad.
Everything is just a state of choice. And so as we get information, it gives us the ability to then make a choice. Right. So when something happens that causes pain, you have a choice from what you're feeling. But what you're feeling is a byproduct of a journey. It doesn't happen for no reason. It all has a reason. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes perfect sense. And actually, that's exactly where my head is. And it's just really, really hard for me to work with clients to convey that in a way that makes sense, to where I'm not saying you're not in pain, because we all do experience pain, right? Sometimes it's physical, sometimes it's mental, emotional.
Yeah, but pain
is just an identifier.
The reason why we feel pain,
right?
It's a trigger to help us survive. But what we think we need to survive adapts and grows over time. But most people don't learn the adaptation. Right. So we're still stuck in our 5-year-old mind that thinks if we do this, we're gonna die. And it's no longer true. So what you do is you start looking at your reaction. Let's just use pain, for example. Your reaction to pain and say, is this still true now? And most of the time, the answer is no. It's an old pattern that used to be helpful in our childhood. But when we learn new tools that serve us for where we are today, they're now readily available. Most people are just lacking a choice in tools, not the lack of desire. And so pain was something that we felt to stop us from getting hurt. And so we have to ask ourselves, is what I'm feeling really to stop me? Because as an adult, especially when you're talking about working out, we're pushing through the pain. Now, if we were 5 and we were pushing it through the pain, would be detrimental. And so that is the mindset that we have to get into to say, is the signal true? Or is it old and no longer serving you? Does that make sense? Monica?
It does.
And so you have to walk your client when your client starts to articulate what they're feeling. You have to walk them through the exercise of is it true? Is it real? And is it really true?
Yeah, and we do that. It's just really it's a sticky conversation because it feels to them very invalidating. like, no, I actually am in pain. Like like F off. You're invalidating what I'm feeling. And that's where I'm feeling a little bit like,
yes, and that's just
not
you learning more tools and different exercises
to help them come into awareness
of what they're feeling.
Right. And so those are just exercises like the body scans, and I don't mean a machine. I'm talking about to scan your body, and to scan your mind, to really identify what is it that you're actually feeling. Most of the time, people name things incorrectly, right? Just like procrastination is rooted in fear. So you're not feeling procrastination. You're feeling fear. Right. And so helping people identify what are they feeling, followed by where are they feeling it. So when you feel pain in one of your chakras, it's giving you information of whether it's new or old pain. It also can give you information on its origination. It originated somewhere else, and we just keep feeding it over and over and over again. And that's why the removal is so hard. Right? That's why self-doubt is so difficult, because we've been feeding self-doubt for 20 some odd years. And other people, we track those people to feed it too. So it's a hungry monster. And so that is really what you're unwinding when people find you to get on this journey, because they want better health. Well, part of the road to better health is to let go, release, and mourn the thoughts and behaviors that got us to where we are now. Those things did not serve us, and they find you when they're in crisis.
You are awesome. Thank you.
I adore you. Who else would like to chime in?
I would love to go. This is Rose.
Hi, Rose.
Been able to use all of these examples, and I think it's very easy to understand. My issue would be that, and you can tell me obviously why, but even if I have the money stored, I have this poor mentality almost, to where I'm still worried about future bills. So worrying, just constantly worrying about whether it be the safety of my child or the job that I have or just my security, just worrying constantly.
So worrying is abandonment. That's really what you're feeling. Abandonment. And you've attached that feeling to money. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Right. So the issue isn't making and keeping money. The issue is abandonment. And so you're in a vicious cycle of well, if I store enough, then I'm going to be okay, and it's not going to leave me. But it does leave. Because that's exactly what you're thinking of. Remember, the universe doesn't understand negative language. So when you say, I don't want to feel sick, it hears sick, right? And so it doesn't speak that way. And so you have to understand the language of the thoughts that you put out there. So you're putting thoughts out there that say, if I do X, Y, and Z, then it won't leave. Money won't leave. People won't leave. Opportunity won't leave. Right? I will not be abandoned if I do something. That's a vicious cycle, because you are manifesting abandonment. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, and I'm doing things to stop that by not using those words and stuff, and it still appears in my dreams and when I try to go to sleep at night. So I'm just trying to really reprogram myself.
Well, reinvest the energy, right? So when you feel the worry and the anxiety, right, let's move that. Instead of saying something that's abandonment related, let's move that feeling to investment related, right? So you're going to feel this feeling, and you're going to, I'm just going to make this stuff up, right? So you feel anxious, you're trying to really go to bed. So sleep is what you really want, but anxiety is pulling you in the opposite direction because you're worried about money, right? Does that sound like a true scenario?
Definitely.
Okay. So now I've got the feeling. And so now, your blood pressure is going up. You start to feel a little sweaty. You start to feel claustrophobic, right? You can feel that anxiety going in, and you go, okay, I'm going to invest this amazing feeling I have right now. And you can invest it into maybe some gratitude journal. You can invest it into self-care. Maybe that means a bubble bath and putting on some lotion and something kind of silky and feeling great. You want to transfer what you're feeling, which currently sits in a bucket that you categorize as negative, and reinvest that same charge into something that is positive, something that is going towards one of your intentions. So don't think you're going to willpower never works. You're not going to willpower your way through anxiety. You're going to reinvest anxiety into something that is positive. Like I use anxiety when I go to take the stage, or anxiety when I go to do a TV show or something like that, right? I feel anxious because I'm an introvert, not an extrovert. So I use that anxious energy into appearing to others like I'm excited and I'm extrovert. I'm really not, right? So I'm using it as a behavior modification to appear in the journey in which I'm trying to manifest, right? Which is to be a good speaker or just to come here in Clubhouse or whatever it is, right? You're feeling a transference of anxiety into service. Does that make sense? Are you following along when I say that?
I am. It's making totally much sense. I'm just writing as you're talking.
No worries. No worries. So I want you to anticipate that your anxiety friend is going to visit you. And when this anxiety friend visits you, what are you going to invite it to do? So you may invite it to a bath. You may invite it to a walk. You may invite it into whatever, right? When I do this with children, I invite them into their superhuman costume, right? So kids, I get them to get like their superpower t-shirt or their superpower pajamas or their superpower whatever, so that when this friend visits, they can put on their armor, which is their superhero PJs, and they believe that it will protect them or cause it to stay away, right? And I'm like, it'll be right here in this box tomorrow morning. So we're going to put it in the box. We're going to put on our superhero pajamas. We're going to have a great night's sleep. And then tomorrow morning, it'll be right here in the box to pick it back up, right? We play these mental games so that people can realize that you can survive without your friend.
That is awesome. I appreciate that. And if I could just throw one more wrench in there to see if you have any tricks for this. But I just turned 40, and last year I had a hysterectomy, and so I'm struggling with the whole hormonal imbalance. Do you have any tricks for that? Like whether it be beating hot flashes or like something else mentally, because I feel like it is a mental thing. Like I could be sleeping fine and wake up and think of something, or someone bothers me, and then it brings on these flashes. So do you have any tricks for that? Because you are just wise beyond words right now. I love hearing you speak.
Well, that's kind. Thank you. And I really do. My goal is really to serve. So in those type of transitions, so first of all, you definitely want to make sure you're working with a good hormone doctor, because there are things physiologically in the body that it needs in order to be productive. Like, so for me, for example, I use a magnesium spray, because magnesium is something that we lose as we get older, which just causes sleeping and staying to sleep and a whole mess of other things not working. And so first get with somebody that you trust so that you're having the supplements, natural supplements, in your body. Then the second thing is to create what I call cheaters, right? And so there's something called Holosync, which is a type of tones that help you get into a relaxed state. So create a pattern that has intention before it happens, right? So if I wake up in the middle of the night, I can very easily just ask Alexa to play ocean sounds, right? Ocean sounds is part of my sleep routine. So I do the same routine all the time when I want to go to sleep. So I have a ritual of kind of going from my masculine business mode, how I transfer myself into my femininity mode, right? I have my own little routine on how I go from boy to girl in my head. And then as I get into rest, I write, I read, I turn on ocean sounds, I start to go to sleep. So if it happens to me at 2:00 in the morning, I can repeat the routine to remind my subconscious that I need to be sleeping. And it also is what causes me not to have jet lag, because I use the practice of I'm going to go to sleep now versus the feeling of wanting to go to sleep. So I don't rely on feelings. I rely on systems and practices to manifest whatever it is that I'm looking for. So I have sleep routines, I have creativity routines, I have healing routines, I have all kinds of routines that when my body starts to see it, it knows this is what she wants me to do. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense, and I appreciate all of that. Thank you so much.
You are more than welcome.
Can I add to that?
Yes, please.
For the hormone imbalance, try Black Cohosh. It's Black COHOSH. It's helped me a lot.
Thank you.
Hey, Amelia. Just want to mention that if you guys are loving, this is Mike Zeller here, if you're loving what Amelia is sharing this morning, she and I are co-hosting an epic experience in Vegas, also streaming virtually around the world in April. So, Amelia, I don't know if you want to share more about that, but the link is posted above, only $8 to join for 2 days to learn from some of the top experts in the world at human optimization, brain performance, peak performance, flow research, tapping into Amelia's genius. So I'll hand it back to you, Amelia, but I wanted to make sure that everyone recognized that.
Yes, Mike, thank you for that, because I always forget. So yes, 100%. We are trying to put together something that empowers people to be able to be more in control as we lead into the gig economy. The gig economy is here. The rise of the SME, which is the subject matter expert, is the world that we are currently in, as kind of the antiquated stuff starts to fall and the new everything from NFTs and metaverse and SME, all of that stuff is here now, which means as humans, what is it that we need to learn? What skills do we have to adopt in order to be able to perform in this new opportunity? And that's what we refer to as genius, right? What makes us a genius and causes us to scale? And then what is it that causes us to trip and fumble, right? What does not feed our genius? And so the Genius Challenge is all of that content so that you can do the things that we're doing right now. How do you reflect within self? How do you make decisions? How do you put in different practices? What is it that your mind needs in order to enter the flow state? How do I get there intentionally? How do I do that with all the stuff that we're talking about is part of the Genius Challenge. And there's a whole lot of super cool experts that are joining us on stage. So whether you can actually physically be with us in Vegas, which we would love, or if you'd like to join us online, it is an opportunity for you to learn faster, learn deeper, and actually get in alignment so that you can actually become flow. I think we have time for one more. If I'm not lying, I think we have time for one more. Anybody else like to chime in?
This is Coralie.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I might get emotional here because it's just a lot that I've realized this morning as I'm listening. And I have, it's around money, and I have big things that I want to do. I have big dreams, and I don't experience anxiety, and I don't have the stress, and I don't worry because I know that everything will work out. We had to move at the end of February. We were leaving our place, and as of February 19th, we didn't have a house yet. I have 4 kids, but I knew it would work out. I wasn't stressed. My challenge is, I think I had PTSD related to money. When I had my business, there was a number of years, it was a sub-trade business. And in the construction industry, it's an ugly, ugly place with regards to getting payment. And we had, a bunch of employees. We were responsible for their mortgages, their kids. That was what's in my head. And what I think I just realized this morning listening to you as much as I thought that I dealt with that and recognized it, I think that is what's stopping me from taking action, because I'm doing these busy things, like I'm getting on podcasts and I wrote a book and I'm doing all these things, but I'm not getting out there to connect with my people, because I think there's this fear of not being able to collect the money. So if I'm not going after it, I don't have to deal with that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%, right? So you need to spend some time reestablishing the relationship with responsibility, right? As business owners, when we employ others, right, actually are responsible for the livelihoods of others and their family and their kids, that is massive. It is not something that we learn in childhood. It is not something that we learn in college, right? Does that make sense when I say that to you?
Oh, yes.
And so that responsibility, the connection that you had with responsibility, somewhere in you, you feel betrayed. Is that landing for you? Right? And when you feel betrayed, and it doesn't matter what the thing is, but in this case, you feel betrayed by taking and sacrificing for that responsibility. And so you need to reestablish that relationship. You got to first heal and mourn, right? Why you feel betrayed, what that meant, what it cost you, right? You have to have that like tantrum and then make peace with it. And then you have to put in new boundaries and guidelines on what you will and will not do for the responsibility for self and the responsibility for others. And as you start to reconnect to that relationship mentally, the tactical side will naturally free up.
I feel that. I feel it. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. I am getting ready to turn this over. Let me see, make sure people are on stage here.
Yep, Meltzer is on stage.
Awesome. Hello, Mr. Dave Meltzer.
Hello, Amelia. How are you?
I am joyfully handing this over to you and Mr. Jake.
Oh, it's so great. Thank you for such an amazing session. And I look forward to seeing you soon in person and giving you another big hug. Hopefully we won't break down in tears again, but
oh yes I will. Oh yes I will. Every time I see you I cry. Yes, every time I see you I cry.
Which makes me cry. But I want to thank you for all that you're doing. So many people that you don't hear from always tell me, just such amazing things about you and what you're doing, and I just appreciate listening in as well. So have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you soon.
Thank you, sir.
Awesome. All right, let's get started. Today, we're going to talk about one of my favorite things, the mathematical equation of luck. The mathematical equation of luck.
I'm looking for the room, Tony.
What I've done on my end.
Is open, so can you ask?
I'm here now.
Can they hear me then?
They can hear you, yeah.
Okay, welcome everyone. Okay, there's Amelia. All right. We're talking about navigating relationships during life changes. And, I just want to start with leading with the fact that, hey, first of all, we don't have a house up on top. Anyway, it's Carmelia. I've been in the dating relationship space now for almost 30 years. This is my 31st year working in matchmaking, and I've worked alongside a lot of dating apps and a lot of platforms that help dating and relationships.
only person that has the ability to truly objectively interpret information around you, and everybody else is the doom and gloom, you won't go very far, because it's always feels like a sinking ship, right? And so having people around you to help you determine what is happening. What is happening? Why is it happening? What is it telling you? What is it telling you about you? What is it telling you about other people, right? Everything is just information. And having the skills to respond, not react, but respond to information is what deepens relationships, right? And that's the whole lane that you live in. But people just keep hoping an incredible relationship is going to show up. They keep hoping they're going to have incredible partnerships. They keep hoping. And there's no hope in it. It is an intentional act that you grow into and with somebody by moment information. And the ability or the depth is in the commitment to both individuals to wanting an amazing, incredible relationship. But you can only have that with somebody who's also participating, right? I need an active participant on the other side in order for us to have an active we. I have a very deep I. I have a very strong relationship with myself. And then I choose other people to have relationships with. And I think that's the lane that people really don't understand. They want incredible, I mean, they come to you like, I want this amazing, incredible relationship, right? But they don't realize, what are you going to invest into it? What tools do you have? And is the other person also actively participating in it? Because a lot of people just they think the relationships are just going to show up at the door.
I love what you, yeah, sorry, go ahead, Tony. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I completely agree with that. You know, everything takes work, right? And this is a quote that's been going around a lot lately. And so everybody's familiar with it, but it's so poignant in this is that you can't get upset for the results you don't have for the work you didn't do. And a relationship is a living thing. And if it's not, just like anything else, if it's not growing, it's dying. If you're not growing closer together, you're growing further apart. So it's important to remember to do that. It's important to remember to laugh in your relationship, because, you know, you may have already heard me say this, if you're not laughing together, you wind up crying apart, right? And that's inevitably what's going to happen. And that's in any relationship, whether it's just a friend or an intimate relationship, a marriage, or whatever it is. It's important to remember to because we all have to be active participants, right, in that relationship. We have to be active participants in making something work. So that's 100% true. And I just wanted to say this before we go too far from what you were saying in the beginning, Carmelia, is this, that most people don't have a bad day. They have a bad moment that they milk all freaking day. So that bad moment becomes a bad minute, bad hour, bad day, bad week, bad month, bad year, bad decade, and bad life. So the other quote that we've all heard is that most people die at 25 and only get buried at 75 and call the last 50 years a life, when they've been living the same year after year, because they've chosen to be labeled by whatever that situation was, to stay stuck in their past. And the reality of it is, most people are stuck in the future now because they're still stuck in their past, because they're more loyal to their past than they are to their future, right? And we all have to remember that the past was a bruise, not a tattoo. You've recovered. You've grown through it. Hopefully you've grown through it. And if you haven't grown through it, then that's what you need to do. You need to get up and grow, quite literally, right? Like, I don't know if it's my fault, by the way, there's no little house at the top of the screen. I forgot to add that in. And of course, you wanted to get up and grow club, right? But it is about growing through what you go through. But you have to let go of the past in order to grab onto the future. And if you can't seem to do that, it's because you haven't let go of the past. You haven't forgiven. I know I just kind of shifted gears there a minute, but I didn't, because relationships are the same way. If you have a situation in a relationship that is that crucible, that thing that can change the relationship, you can choose to grow, you can choose to let it die there. But what you have to do is you need to forgive the mistakes of whoever it is or whatever it is that happens, so that you can grow into who it is or into the relationship that it is that you want.
I I love that. I love everything that you shared. And just from Amelia's point earlier, she chooses and you have to have that participant. And so where I want to go is where you don't have that participant. And oftentimes in partnership, even in business partnerships, you have these expectations, right? Whether that agreement is we're going to meet at a certain time. If you're co-parenting with somebody and pick up and drop off is compromised. If you're trying to coordinate a date with someone and they just never have their calendar available, or they have their calendar available but they don't show up. So in those cases, and I try to think about something that just recently happened to me. You know, you have an expectation. There's a time that something is supposed to happen. There's no communication. And I think to myself, wow, I can start to move into this like blame, angry, I can't believe you do that, you're so disrespectful, like whatever it is, and start to get centered on me, my feelings, my emotions, my upset, rather than taking a different perspective and saying, there must be something, getting curious about the other side. There's got to be something maybe going on the other side that's not allowing for this communication. And instead of immediately defaulting to this, type of scenario, which is very negative energy, I think the one thing that you can do, there's many steps that you can take when you're trying to deal with difficult situations during relationships. But first of all is acknowledging what can you control? Like, what can you actually control? And if you can't control it, how are you going to deal with that emotion and shift it to a positive, or focus on gratitude so you're not stuck in those emotions of the why me and how could you and those types of things. So I think that's really important, and really looking at your self-talk. When I start to go and feel negative energy and I start to, fall into maybe this blame scenario, I think to myself, what is myself saying to myself? Anytime it's about me and my needs and letdowns, then I'm disappointed. Whenever I start to get curious about the other person, or just accept the fact that I can't change this, no point in worrying or anything, I've got to shift my focus to something that I can control, that is positive, that isn't going to take me down this rabbit hole. And a lot of times that happens in personal relationships. I cannot tell you how many people inside of relationships, particularly if their attachment style is anxiously attached, they obsess over this relationship. They can't think of anything else. Nothing is a priority other than figuring out what's going on. Why is it happening? Why me? And all of that. And it's obsessive when all of that energy can be used towards doing activities that you can impact. And the one thing we can't do is control another human being as much as we want to. If we had that secret sauce, I'd love it. Because I'm a little bit of, I'll admit it, I'm an Aries. And I'm like, I want to know what's going on all the time. I want feelings to be talked about. I want everything on the table. Amelia's probably agreeing with me. But Amelia, people aren't all like that. Sometimes you got to pry them open like a clam. And when people want to talk to you, it's their time to talk to you. It's their choice to talk to you. I can't manipulate that. So it's really important to understand that and accept that, because that is the fastest step to happiness that I can get, is when I can breathe and I can meditate and I can take myself out of these negative emotions and focus on what I can control and something productive for me. So I just wanted to share that. Would love to hear from anyone on our stage as well regarding navigating relationships, or if you have a question around this topic.
If I may.
Go ahead.
Okay. I love what you said, the attitude of gratitude. Because in a negative situation, you make that mind shift. And basically, you have to be aware of what dialogue you're having with yourself. If it's a negative one, immediately replace it, followed by a positive sentence. Like, I'm not feeling well, but I'm getting better. I feel I'm recovering. That's an example. And the other thing is, like, they say empathy is the highest form of intelligence. So be a little empathetic towards the other person in terms of maybe they have gone through something, or something must have happened, And you're right, Camelia, not to worry about it, but just focus on you and be persistent in a way that one does not come out aggressive if you want to pursue it. Or because if it's worth the investment and the time and the energy, then you continue doing what you're doing, you know what I'm saying? And keep that smile on, you know what I'm saying? And basically, when you are in the attitude of gratitude to a point where you can feel it in your heart all the time, then you can always start manifesting things. You can change the person. They can feel your reflection, you know what I'm saying? Your energy, you know, the fire which is within you. You can transfer it from you to them without even uttering the word. You know what I'm saying? So there are things that can be done, okay? And yeah, I mean, focus on only the positive. Anytime you get a negative thought, and also be careful who you talk to, because some people can energize the conversation. And be very careful, no matter how good friends you have. Who would be a perfect candidate who could give me that energy or feedback where it'll raise my frequency, not make me make my frequency go low, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, this is what I wanted to say, and you mentioned great points, and thank you all for listening.
I was reading things in the background. Tony, sorry about that. Hey, Travis, are you around? Is anybody? Yeah. How would you navigate? You've been married for quite a long time, I know, or in your partnership. Your wife is a dating coach, actually, and Travis works with a lot of people in close relationships. What's one way that you've navigated challenging times within your own partnership, and what are your agreements as a couple? Do you talk about these things in advance? Do you talk about how you're going to deal with things? And because I know you've done a lot of growth inside of your own partnership.
Yeah, that's a good question. My good friend James always says there's no marriage problems, there's only personal development issues. And in my personal opinion, I agree with that. When it comes down to when we really look at the problems, like what a person is usually going through, usually comes down to personal development issues, like things we need to work on. And what I found is, I know, you know, as you're working on yourself, you can't work on your spouse, but at the same time, if you work on yourself and then your spouse works on themselves, then you can solve virtually almost all of your issues. And I think what I found most useful is, for us at least in my relationship, is when I put 100% into making sure that I am doing the best job that I can. And I found when my wife is doing the same thing, we're doing amazing. It becomes problematic when we're not doing that. And that's when I find out we have the most issues. And so for me, my advice for people is whenever you feel, even as a man, this might, I don't know how people may feel about this particular perspective, but in my opinion, you know, it's just my perspective. Y'all don't fight on this, but my opinion as a man, if I consider myself the leader, right? If I consider myself the man of the relationship, I personally feel like the majority of the responsibility is on me to make sure things are going right. And what I mean by that is, regardless of how my wife is acting, I am going to lead in the direction I feel like the relationship should go. And what I found is when I do that, my wife takes notice, and then she ends up coming along, like kind of like follow along with me. So, in my opinion, as long as I am doing the right thing and I take the challenge of myself to actually move in the right direction, even if I feel like my wife isn't at the time, she usually comes right along and does that. So that's my perspective, and that's how, you know, we handle our challenging perspectives. But also don't hesitate, and I think this is something that people misunderstand too. Don't hesitate to seek counsel. We have people that we are able to call. You know, one of the most important things we have is almost all of our friends are married, you know, and been married for years. You know, I have a great circle of friends, and if I need another perspective on me, I'll call one of my friends and say, hey, listen, what do you think I've done wrong in this perspective, or what do you think I should do in this perspective? Or don't hesitate to have a therapist that you're paying, right? You know, because I that's something that we have a therapist, and so I make sure I'm able to communicate, to the therapist, hey, listen, this is something challenging we might be coming through, tell me what you think. And that's also another perspective. So if you really want to be successful, I just think the challenge really is how much can you really have introspection on yourself and then grow in a way that is collaborative with and for you and your spouse, because this is a together problem. It's never everything that we tackle together instead of thinking like we're enemies or this person is doing that. Just like no. If my wife is going through something, then I feel like I'm going through it too. So, in my perspective, that's just the most productive way.
I love that when you have that kind of partnership and agreement, and I think those are situations I wouldn't say they're ideal, but certainly things become more challenging or difficult when you're with somebody that's not on the same page, or when you're inside of a situation through a major life change. A lot of conflict comes when there isn't agreement. As you said, you don't have it's a personal development issue, right? It's a communication issue. So when a person inside of that relationship or partnership, or even if it's yourself that's unclear, that doesn't know how to communicate, that doesn't know how to deal with this stress, that is finding themselves in a really challenging time. I love the idea that you get support, that if you're listening today, that you surround yourself with the people who are here on this stage, right? I know that we all have choice. I love what Amelia just shared. Pain is a part of life, but suffering is a choice. And I got to tell you, I've chosen to suffer many, many times in my life. I've chosen to suffer, and I'm not even realizing it was a choice in the moment. I just felt like my emotions ruled my physiology, my mind, and when my emotions rule, my actions follow those emotions. So you really have to master and train your brain and your mindset to acknowledge and recognize quickly when your emotions are ruling all of your actions. So I absolutely love that. Is there anyone else that wants to chime in on this topic? Please.
I'd love to jump in.
Yeah.
I'd love to jump in for a second and say that, the challenges in any relationship are really ultimately deepened that relationship. Unfortunately, we live in a society today that relationships are more disposable than they've ever been. And it's just important that, if you love someone, you've got to fight for what it is that you love. And those challenges, those arguments, those disagreements are there to force you to, not to force, but to really create that deeper bond. And it's just important to remember that those challenges are going to come. And it's up to you collectively to handle that problem, because it's not me against you with this problem. It's me and you against that problem. Right, against that challenge, so that you can grow through it together. Because the minute that the blame game starts, instead of trying to get to the solution, you're just focusing on the problem. You're just going to find more problems and more reasons to be upset, more reasons to bicker, more reasons to have things fall apart. So it's just important to remember that you're a team, right? It's not 50-50. We've had this conversation here before. It's not 50-50. It's 100-100. Because whenever someone's tired and not able to perform or not able to show up at their 50%, it's okay, because you guys are still got, you've got each other's back, and you're already at 100% plus. So it's important to always come through with that. Would you like, I think we should really do a room reset here, Carmelia, or would you like to do it? I can do it, because we've only got 9 shares of the room, and there's many more than 9 people on the stage.
I love that. Okay, I'll do a quick room reset, guys. Welcome, everyone. This topic is navigating relationships during life changes. We've had over 100 people in this room already. With 50 of you here now, our request is that you hit that share button. You can share here on Clubhouse what you're getting. You can also share and invite other people to this conversation through social. Take a screenshot. Give us a follow. You can tag us and follow us on Instagram. But we'd love to have more people impacted by dealing with navigating relationships during these life changes. Follow your moderators. And of course, we've got the chat feature. Oh, it's disabled. Forget that part. Come to stage if you definitely have a question. But absolutely. And Tony, what's the club that should have been on there? We can still drive people to do that.
Yes. It's the Get Up and Grow. So if you click on my profile picture, it'll open up and it'll say Tony #Get Up and Grow. So it's Get Up, the letter N, Grow, one word. That is the Clubhouse room. And
I love that.
My fault.
Okay. I'm entire life. Natalie, are you there? Can you flash your mic, Nat, if you're here? Oh, hello? Okay, there you are. Okay. Natalie. Natalie's part of my team. She's incredible. And Natalie, for those who don't know you, you have been married with you and your hubby. You've got 2 beautiful kids. You've had, a lot of massively life-changing situations. I know you personally. So would you share maybe a tip or two in terms of how you've navigated some of the life choices that were uneventful, unfruitful, and really difficult in your family? I know a lot of people don't know your story, so if you feel comfortable to share or talk about that, would love to hear something from you.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. Yes, I've had the past 3 years have actually been really, really impactful, eventful. COVID certainly didn't help. But what happened was as Carmelia said, I'm married with 2, I guess you could call them, I have a man-child, and I have a daughter who's 18, and my son is just turned 22. But at the time, 3 years ago, they were younger, and my husband, who was a dentist, lost his career. So this had a huge impact on all of our lives. My husband in particular, because he became disabled. And if you look at him, he doesn't look disabled, and he's not in a wheelchair. He's not, he can walk, he can talk, he can argue his points. He's very intellectual. But he had a successful dental practice, and we just didn't anticipate our lives to turn this way. It was really, really challenging. And what happened, I'll explain the story. My husband and I had a flu-like virus, and it impacted his health. I recovered, but he became deaf in one ear and lost his balance and had vertigo. So we had to sell the office. We sold our house in Vancouver. And what we did was we ended up buying a place in Mexico. So, we thought, let's have an adventure. This could be a positive. Let's just go. And we did, and we found this amazing house, and we loved it. But our kids, no, they didn't. It was a really, tough time for them because of their age. Now, looking back, I think, you know what, it was a good idea to go, because sometimes you have to shake things up in life. If something's not working, there has to be a bit of a shake-up. But in terms of, so thank you for listening. I feel like I really dumped a lot out. Perhaps I needed to. So, excuse me, my point is, communication is a very, very key element in navigating any tough time in a relationship. You need to communicate your thoughts. You also need to get out of your head. So what happens is it's very easy to become a victim, and it's really easy to remain in that victim role when you're in your head. When you're in your head, feeling sorry for yourself, and then when you're in your head as a victim, you become reactive. So my advice when something happens, and in daily life, it's meditation. Really, you need to get out of your head. And what really helps me become more responsive and less reactive is when I get out of my head and I'm living in the moment. Because in fact, when we busy ourselves and when we're in our heads and victims, we're not really living in the moment. We're not seeing what's around us. We're not really utilizing the time in the day for anything other than negative things. So I think the key, and what has really helped me, is meditation and really, really knowing that I have so much to be grateful for. So when you live like that, you live in the moment. And it's not always easy to stay in the moment, but to try to get back to that moment, and that could be, walking meditation, being out in nature, just getting out of your head in terms of being a victim. So the more you look outside of yourself, the more you feel connected to the universe, the more you feel a part of a bigger picture. And sometimes when something happens that is traumatic or life-changing or life-altering, there's something really good around the corner. So just be open to it. Be open to what the universe is presenting to you and understand that you are a part of a bigger picture. And that would be my advice for anybody. And thank you so much for listening. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for sharing that, Natalie. And I've seen her in action. I've seen what she accomplishes despite what she's going through with her family and like literally three different three different places, massive difference, one different continent with her entire family. So that's so great. And I love the fact that you related it to you being part, we are just tiny, tiny little specks of something that is much bigger, much grander. But also, if your view of yourself, not that you should view yourself as tiny, but when you can think about yourself as being a tool, a conduit to something bigger, you're beyond your small, issues or challenges. Because when you're thinking about the big picture and the world and what everybody else is going through, you can easily find evidence and things that you can be grateful for today, right now, particularly in a climate like we are in right now. So I absolutely love that. Thanks for sharing. Is there anybody else that wants to chime in or have a question around this topic of navigating relationships during life changes?
This is Big Mike.
Go ahead, Big Mike, and then we'll hear from Murad.
Yeah, hey, Carmelia. Yeah, you're talking about relationships and stuff, even though at the time that we're in right now, we're going through a change in our relationships and that. But I'll tell you this, my wife and Marissa and I have 9 little girls, and, sometimes we do have disagreements, whether it be personal, family stuff, or business relationships. But at the end of the day, I'll just say this. Don't ever go mad at each other. At the end of the day, you guys, don't do it, because we don't do it. We're on the same page most of the time. But if we do have a disagreement before we go to bed that night, whether it be my fault that started the disagreement or the argument, or it be hers and that, we always apologize to one another and say, I'm sorry, before the end of the day, because we don't know what tomorrow holds. This is Big Mike, and I'm done speaking.
Thank you, Big Mike. A very, a familiar advice for couples and for anybody is to not go to bed angry. So I love that. Murad, what would you like to share?
I'd like to say thank you, Natalie, and thank you, Travis, for your share. I love both your shares. I just want to say that everything is also mindset and programming. So basically, what we tell ourselves is the subconscious mind is constantly listening to it, and we are programming ourselves. And instead of using challenges and issues, I like to use the word an opportunity. Yes, it's an opportunity to look more into myself. How can I change things on my side, or become a little more humble, or change my tone, or what approach can I use? So when I ask those questions, answers do come to me. And consultation is one of very powerful things. It's always good to consult. And if you really need help, then absolutely reach out to an outside source, take some counseling. I've done that in the past, and I'm not ashamed to say it. And I'm very happy I did, because it changed everything around, because my spouse wasn't very communicative, you know what I'm saying? So the things started changing like magic, you know what I'm saying? And the thing is, always be very, very aware of what you are telling yourself, because everything is an opportunity, you know what I'm saying, to reprogram your subconscious mind, because it's also, we don't know what the upbringing of the other person was, what did they grow up listening to or being around with, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I mean, it's always an opportunity to change things around and keep growing, So thank you for letting me speak.
Carmela, this is Corey.
Hi, Corey. Welcome. Would love to hear from you. Please chime in.
Thank you. A great room so far. I am learning new tools, and I am with the G100 with Amelia, and it's been liberating to understand that there are fixes to the problems that I've been going through for the last, 50 years. But the one thing or one problem that I'm having is really going back into this historical book of my life and identifying pinpoint life experiences that may have caused a change or that I need to evaluate to make sure I don't repeat the same issue or problem. And I don't know if I had a hard childhood, but it wasn't traumatic. I don't feel like there's memories that I'm purposely blocking or not trying to remember. I just remember always having a perseverance and a resilience that even though I knew things were going to be hard, I needed to push through it and that there was always going to be an answer. I just needed to keep trying harder. But I'm finding that maybe because I didn't address those issues at the time, that I'm having a hard time being able to analyze them or find them. And so a lot of times what I've done is I just start from today. And if something happens today, then I use these new tools in order to address it. And I'm just wondering how much it's possibly going to affect my ability to continue to grow and improve if I don't go all the way back to the history, to the root, and take care of these things.
I love what you're sharing. So what you're saying is, can you just what you've discovered for yourself is that when you are triggered, let's say you're feeling an emotional response, that it's always rooted to something of the past?
So my assumption in the new tools that I'm learning is that it probably is rooted to somewhere in the past, but because I don't allow myself to really stay in that emotional state for very long, because really I have too much shit to do, but it's all the stuff that I've had to be responsible for has pulled me out of it. It hasn't been something where I purposely have acknowledged I need to change my viewpoint of this particular emotion or incident that's happening and change it for a positive for myself so that energy is transformed into good energy pulling me through instead of me just desperation pulling me through to make sure that I continue achieving or continue my life and don't get stuck in some of those black holes that can happen when we sit in our depression or sadness for a bit.
Yeah. It's sort of like acknowledging that you do, like for those who've been through trauma or a difficult situation or going through it now, is you're acknowledging that, hey, there's something there, and that whatever's there, which is negative, right, which is the emotions that make you feel, as you said, like either depressed or anxious or whatnot, it's there, you're acknowledging it, but you're just not staying in that for a long time. And as Amelia stated, like, it's a choice, right? And I think it's important that when you know that, and that's a sense of awareness, some people operate and do things without even knowing, like they're just blind to it. It's second nature. They're not even aware that their behavior, what they say, what they do, their energy is rubbing off a certain way, and they don't have I wouldn't say that they just lack awareness. So the fact that you have awareness of that and that you can choose to acknowledge it, okay, emotion, there you are, but I'm gonna choose this emotion because I don't want to be, as Natalie said, stuck in victim mode, stuck in my head, listening to those voices that are not empowering, that do not lift me up, that are not forgiving. And I think that's one of the skills, the traits, is identifying those, learning to identify that, understanding how to express those feelings. And then it's kind of like Marie Kondo, the tidy expert that takes that piece of clothing that you've been holding on to and saying, Does this spark joy? No. All right, it's going to spark joy for someone else. So you can do the same thing with an emotion. Does this emotion spark joy? Like, really look at it, really think about it. No. Okay, so we're going to table that for right now. And we're going to focus on something else. But I will say,
and I think that, Carmen, I think that's what, the awareness is, right? Your behavior works for you until it doesn't. And being able to constantly really be doing this self-awareness of, is what I'm thinking and what I'm doing, is it working for me? Right? It's that analysis. It's the difference between people who are practicing being self-aware and other people who literally are just living by default. They're just throwing their shit all over the place, right? And that becomes the usually the determining factor of who people spend their time with, right? If you have no self-regulation, right? If you're not being self-aware, I can assure you, you and I will not be friends. We won't, because I don't have any of that chaos in my life. I don't allow it. And so that determines the grouping of the people that will be around you. And I think what Corey was saying is, now she's come into awareness that there's some things that just aren't working for her anymore. They may have at an earlier point in life, or she may have numbed and we're not aware. But now that she is opening up kind of Pandora's box, she's choosing what is and isn't working. And when you talk about, well, how far back do I need to go? That's part of the releasing, right? When you just determine that there's this behavior that you have and you're like, I never saw that before. And now that I see it, not sure I like it so much, right? It's not the best version of myself. Your brain will seek an answer. There's a reason why that behavior was learned and present. And when you can understand its reason, right, and its purpose, you are more empowered to let it go, right? But not knowing leaves the brain to keep guessing and guessing and guessing and guessing and guessing. And then it spirals into just absolute noise. When I understood for myself, I had a very, very wicked temper, a bad temper. When I understood why I learned that quick flash, see red temper, when I understood where it was rooted in, why it manifested, why it existed, the blessings that it brought me, I was then more easily prepared to let it go. Because where it needed to survive, it doesn't need to survive here anymore, right? It was of service. It was a tremendous value for me. I just don't need it now. However, it is a very developed skill. So if you choose to take this dog fight, let me assure you, I have a practice skill you do not want to come up against, right? I keep that nice and tucked away, but it is in my arsenal that if I do need to go to battle, I have a very well-developed skill. And I think that that's what happens, right? Right? That's what happens when you can serve all of you. All of you exist for a reason. All of you were rooted in some manifestation that needed to be done in order for you to adopt some type of behavior. And that behavior needs to be celebrated. Now, you may let it go if it's no longer serving you, but it doesn't exist for no purpose. And then when Corey's saying, how far back do I go? You go back until you go, oh, wow, that's really a blessing. That's a blessing. Or I never would have made it this far. And I think that's the type of mindset that allows us to deepen in self and then deepen within our relationship with others.
What I really love about what you shared, Amelia, and in listening to you, because you are someone who literally demands people around you to be, and it's not like it's the demand, you're just very clear. This is what I allow in my space. This is how I allow behavior to come in. So guess what? I can be a neurotic, crazy human being, but around you, you're never going to see that because Amelia's not going to let me get away with that shit, right? I can't stomp my feet on her. I can't have this temper tantrum. Like, we might, but as you said, you're equipped to manage that, or you give me the choice, Carmelia. I know you can be crazy, neurotic person and chaotic, but I don't have people like that around me, right? So I love.
And those are the tools that are in a relationship, right? In a relationship, when you start talking about, finding your person and developing into a relationship with your person, or if you're in a relationship with your person, well, who your person was a decade ago isn't who they are now, right? So you have to constantly be taking inventory of self and an inventory of the relationship to identify, hey, listen, when we were 20 something years old, starting out, trying to buy our first home or whatever that story is, these things worked for us. But now we're 40 something years old and we're not in that anymore. And so relationships that grow are relationships that have all that richness in it, that, happy and connect. But it's the relationships that don't grow because people just leave it to default. They hope it's going to work for 50 years. No, it's not. It's not going to work very long. I think the average is like 3 years, 3 months now, right? It used to be 7 years, and now it's 3 years before whatever natural ability you had will bust at its seams right around 3 years.
Wow. Amelia? Yes, Kimberly, please share.
Hi, Amelia.
Hey, that's my accountability partner right there, Miss Kimberly King.
Imagine being willing to take on Amelia Antonetti as my accountability partner. I mean, seriously.
I think that's a fun ride, to be honest.
I am taking myself seriously on that. And actually, as we hear every week in these rooms, and any of you who know Amelia, it's actually a privilege and a joy to be in relationship with someone who's bringing their commitment to the table for communication, for claim, for self-responsibility. It ups it in you. It gives you somebody to play love match with. And that's a game you really can't. And as you know, a lot of times we're talking, especially with you, Carmelia, we're talking about dating and finding and the relationship. A 25-year relationship with my husband. A number I wasn't sure I would ever be able to say. And it sounds like a huge number when I say it out loud. But an interesting stat that you just said, Amelia, although I think you said that number had changed, but early in my life, because I was married before and spent a lot of my time single, and I especially loved kind of long distance relationships because it allowed me to not have to negotiate some of the more mundane things. And I realized later in my life that I was choosing that it wasn't just who I fell in love with, but choosing some way to get what I wanted and defer what I didn't want, but in ways that really would not make me grow in it with somebody. And I definitely want to say that as we're talking about the things that serve you in the early part of your life, you will reinvent yourself and your relationship many times if you have the privilege of staying in a long-term committed relationship. I see that the core of who we are, our agreements and our commitments, they have remained durable. They have been what has kept us together. And the bottom line of that is deep mutual respect. And I learned through my relationship with Brent and with him, the first cornerstone of taking responsibility for me and also not trying to change the other person. And I think a lot of us fall in love with attention. They think that's just as much as we go. I wouldn't recommend that philosophy at all. Find somebody who really does want to be in it with you, and find somebody who wants to do the growth and development in your transition stages. But whether they do or not, or at the same pace as you, you're responsible for you. I think when Travis was talking about
Sit. Sit. Come on.
How'd you do? Good. Any problem picking her up?
No.
Gee, how was your test and stuff?
Well, praying I get into algebra too, but you never know.
That's right. When I tell you to open up the mic, we're not. Okay, all I have to do is look up and I can actually see. We're actually
Good
live
morning,
streaming
everyone.
right now at the same time.
Jumping back into the other room.
Looking and looking at the phone.
No, we have to get the guests here, video here, streaming there, and I'm about to have a breakdown every single Friday. So, but we're here.
Okay, so I'm so excited, right? Because we have updates now, right? I've been following, right? As this is right in alignment with what we're talking about, this morning in the topic, that life-pending event. When something happens in life that changes the trajectory of everything. And so this is a perfect example.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how much more perfect you can get because it actually it's a dramatic event that has a happy ending.
Well, and we were talking this morning about, a lot of those events. Like Steve Jobs had them, Michael Jordan had them, I've actually had them. Sometimes life does something and we're not really sure at the time what it means or why. But in the grand scheme of things, there's always a why. I was talking about the unanswered prayers. There's a lot of things that I prayed for in my life, and there was a reason why it did not happen. But there's other things I never prayed for that actually happened. And at the time, you're kind of like, what is going on here? And so I am excited. So why don't you do the intro, Mr. Randy?
I'll do the intro. This is a dear friend of the show. This is Dave Sanderson's second time to be here with us. He's been on my podcast before. I just can't imagine having walked a mile in his shoes. So every time I hear this story, I think Amelia and I both just shake our heads and go, how? Dave, on January 15, 2009, Dave was one of the last passengers off the plane that crashed into the Hudson River, that of course we know as the Miracle on the Hudson flight. And since then, and he'll talk about
he's built a career as a motivational speaker,
mentor, and author. His second book is just come out, From Turmoil to Triumph. David, am I right? Second book?
That is correct.
Okay. Recently named one of the top 100 leadership speakers at Inc.com. Former director of security for Tony Robbins. I mean, Dave, it's just, we've spent the morning talking about events that change your life and how you navigate those. This is a dramatic example. Now, the last time you were on, we spent a lot of time talking about what happened on January 15, 2009. Amelia and I kind of want to go beyond that, but can you give us the footnote, which I know is difficult to do? Can you just give us a little update for those people who have not heard you speak? What happened that day to you?
Yeah, thank you, Randy. Can you hear me, Randy? Okay?
I hear you great.
That's great. So, thank you, Amelia, again. Yeah, the Cliff Note version is I wasn't supposed to be on the flight, US Airways Flight 1549. Got on it. Nothing unusual. Back in coach 15 days. 60 seconds after we take off, you hear an explosion. Don't know what it is. But about 60 seconds later, you find out that all of a sudden the captain says, your captain brace for impact. Something serious is going to go on. And about 60 seconds after that, this all happened in about 6.5-7 minute session. This is a very condensed, but it's really played out. After you hear that, about 60 seconds later, we're crashing into the river. After we get over, cross over George Washington Bridge, clear that by 400 feet. So now you're in the river, survived the plane crash. That's a good thing, but now you really got what's going on. The plane is now sinking in 36-degree water. And you got to get out. And that's when things start changing for me, because getting down was one thing. The crew get all the credit and a fabulous job that day, and I give them amazing credit for that. But now you got to get out. That's when teamwork and leadership really came to the forefront. And it wasn't my plan to be one of the last passengers out. But when I got to the door, it was my time to go. I heard my mother speak to me, and she said, she passed away in 1997. She said, the right thing, God will take care of you. And for me, the right thing for me to do was try to help other people. So I made my way over the seat to go to the back of the plane if anybody needed help. And fortunately, they were moving pretty quick. The water back in the back was about chest level deep. And it's 36-degree water. So now you got another challenge trying to get out. But I started making my way out like everybody else, and all of a sudden I saw light on the door, and I'm out of here. And all of a sudden I look out the door, and it's an amazing sight. People are standing on a wing and in a boat. And there's no room for me to get out. And that's how I became the last passenger out
the plane because there was no room for me to get on the wing of the boat, but people were already being rescued less than 2 minutes after this plane crashed to the Hudson River. So I was inside the plane, waist deep in 36-degree water for about 7 minutes until I had to go because I thought the plane was sinking. That's why I had to swim to the closest boat that I could find. Had to get into that wing about, I tell you, about the longest 15-yard swim I've ever had in my life. Because not only is it 36-degree water, but you also got jet fuel in the river, and that's why I went out and got jet fuel in my eyes. But I got there, and fortunately, there were people who could actually help me because I could climb the ladder. And once again, people helped me get over to the ferry, and that's how I survived the plane crash. Now the turmoil starts. There's a lot more turmoil. You survive one thing, now you got other things start hitting you. So that's a very short version of a very long story.
Yeah, but I shared with you, and we've talked several times. Yeah. And one of the things that means the most to me, that hits me, is that you literally had this inner epiphany. This is what I'm going to do with my life. Not knowing if you would live to do that. And I can't imagine that kind of epiphany followed by that kind of doubt. But Amelia, did you read this? What he called it? Post-traumatic growth syndrome. How much do you love that?
Yes.
I so love that. I
want to use it forever. Post-traumatic growth syndrome.
Yep. Yeah, it was amazing when I first heard someone say that because they wanted to interview me for AARP magazine. And Kaylee, Randy, I mean, I don't know why they want to interview me. I mean, I wasn't old. What could I contribute to that sector, that niche? But they told me they really wanted to see how I grew from a traumatic life event called a plane crash so many other people hadn't. And that's why post-traumatic growth syndrome came out. It's like a lot of people who went through that scenario, including some of the crew, PTSD. But I didn't. They really wanted to get in my head. What did I do differently than everybody else who was going through PTSD? I shared that in an article. All of a sudden, I was asked to do a TED Talk about it. And that's what my TED Talk is about. Is strategies of how I grew from traumatic life into a depressed state.
Well, give us a highlight. What'd you do? Give us at least 1, 2 things. What did you do different?
Yeah, I think I'll give you the one key thing. There's many things that I did and I detail, but the one thing that really I think is a critical one is the meaning you attach to something produces the emotion of your life, and emotion is your life. And so the meaning I attached to this was it was a blessing. I was given an opportunity to do something to help other people. Or many other people, and this sort of came out in public because I was in the green room on Good Morning America with other passengers in the crew, and we were talking. But there's one passenger that just went into a rage. He just started yelling, and me, like everybody else, like, what's wrong with this guy? I mean, he survived a plane crash. We're on national TV, but I found out he was going through a divorce and he lost his job. So the meaning he attached to the plane crash was devastation. The meaning I attached was a blessing. So the meaning you attach to things produces all that emotion. So the one of the ways you can change and grow instead of going to depressed state is changing your primary question. What's the question you keep asking yourself in your head? Because the question people mostly ask these days are negative. Why does this always happen to me? I can never get anything done. I can never get across the finish line. Where you change the question up like I did, how can I use this event to help my life and enjoy it? And that's really, so I changed my primary question. Is how I changed the meaning. And that's how I started growing. So going into a depressed state.
So I've got a question. They say that you're always preparing for some event, right? Like that, although you did not know this event was coming, right? The universe did.
Right.
And so if you look back, what were you preparing? What was it about who you are and your character and that like unique ability that was happening from boyhood that prepared you for that moment?
Well, thank you for that.
Thank you for that question, because that's pretty much what my new book's about, From Turmoil to Triumph. And I'll give you sort of background, because I think this is what helped me. I think everybody's got this, but doesn't come to light. Back in 1984, I was the second assistant restaurant manager at a place called Howard Johnson. That means I was working second and third shift. First job out of college. But there was a second gentleman and his wife would come to the restaurant every night, have coffee and ice cream. We talk. And I know who this gentleman was. He wore a flannel shirt from a pickup truck. But he owned 80 movie theaters and restaurants in the Carolinas, North and South Carolina. He was a multi-millionaire. And he started teaching me these things. But the epiphany came. This is where it all started shifting for me. Was December 24th, 1984. When he came to the parking lot, well, early that day, he wanted to show me what he got his wife for Christmas. It was a brand new blue Corvette. I'd never seen a Corvette. Could spell Corvette. But he threw me the keys, so let's take a ride. And we took a ride up and down Woodlawn Road here in Charlotte. I came back, I gave the keys back to Bill. I said, Bill, Bonnie's going to really love this, man. He goes, you need one of these. So Bill, I'm making $13,000 a year. I can barely afford my rent. That's your problem. That's your mindset. Can I coach you on the success, the mindset of success? So for 13 years, he was teaching me this. And he mentored me when I had challenges. He'd tell me these lessons and tell me these stories. And in May of 1997, he asked me to come to his office. And he wanted to tell me two things. First thing he told me, he was dying of lung cancer. He smoked a couple packs of Camels a day. So he was going to have a tough time. But he went over to his desk and pulled out these crumpled old notes and walked over, sat down next to me, Amelia. He said, I want to give you these. I said, what are they? He goes, these are the handwritten notes I took in 1929 when I sat down with my mentor. He taught me what I taught you. So I want to give this to you, but you have to promise me one thing. I said, why? He goes, do not let it die with you. He gave me these notes. He passed away in September of 1997. And I didn't do anything with these notes. For 20 years. I put them in a way. I didn't even look at it. I was like, all of a sudden, I'm writing my book, Moments Matter, and all of a sudden, I find these notes. And all of a sudden, I'm like, what an idiot I am. So I've had gold in my hands for 20 years, but more importantly, I had to fill that problem. And that's what this book's about. So to answer your question, Amelia, I think everybody has mentors that come in their life and teach them things. The question is, what are you going to do with it? Yeah. You're going to take action on it. Unfortunately for me, I had somebody who gave me these lessons, and then my blessing was 5 months later, Tony Robbins asked me to be assistant head security, later head security. He mentored me for over 13 years. So it's all these people come into your life and teach you these things. That's why I feel like I was prepared. Yeah, mentally and more emotionally for what's about to happen.
I love that.
And I do believe I think that we're always becoming a better version of ourselves.
And when you can
stay present on what it is you're learning,
so that when you're called to it,
you're ready.
And I get it.
I mean, I have made a commitment in this year
to pour
heavily into 100 people, knowing that those 100 will carry on what they perceive to be valuable from what I've learned during my life.
Right.
It's a legacy building piece. Now, what they're going to do with it, I have no idea. But I know that if I pour greatly and I pour in a way that is not ruled by me,
right?
It's just transferring the knowledge with complete faith that it's going to be where it needs to be when it needs to be.
I think that's what makes life
so rich,
right?
Because when you learn something from somebody else
and you
make the connection of why you learned it, like it can literally be 20 years later, like, oh my gosh, now I totally get why that happened. You really connected with every other human in the world in that moment because everybody learned something from somebody else, which means you're not only connected to the person who taught you, that gentleman was taught by somebody else, and it creates these lives of passages, the lives of passages as we go from one generation to another, knowing that knowledge originated somewhere and it's now living within you, and you have the choice to gift it to somebody else. And I think that's what's so beautiful about this new book is it is so apparent that we're here for a reason. We're actually really here, and you are the one who's in control of who you are becoming. And you can there's so many stories that die with people. I mean, Tony and I say this all the time. Some of our greatest work dies with us.
And
when we understand that we have a sense of urgency
to
share what we know
and the
and the impact it has on others. And I think,
what
you did in that moment when you were called
to show up
as a hero.
And you
did.
It
wasn't that moment.
It was
the millions of moments that prepared you to be the hero that you were.
And
that began your legacy piece.
Because
I will tell you, especially after we spoke last time together,
how
many people blew up our back channels and said,
I don't think
I would have done the same.
I think I would have just
saved myself. And that's the reality is are you a hero in somebody's life? Will you rise to the occasion when called upon? And the best part is, are you ready?
Are you ready?
Are you ready?
And your
new book, I think, is brilliant.
Well, thank you. I put it all through releasing it on me for a couple of reasons. I want to add some additional content. One of the things it's in that book, and I sort of pulled it back and wrote some new things. The question somebody asked me probably about a year and a half ago is, why did Bill pick you?
I
mean, he was 77 years old. He was living a good life. He didn't have any financial worries. Why did he pick me? And I wrote an addendum to the book about that. I think after looking back on that, he told me a story about how he picked his first manager in one of his new restaurants in South Carolina. And one of the things he always told me is, like, when you're hiring somebody, you have time to do the background scraping. It's really a gut instinct. If you have a gut instinct and you know it, and you believe in it, go with it. And I think when he met me, he saw something in me that I would take action on. I would not let it die with me. That's why I felt so bad in 2016. I didn't do anything with it. That's what my mission is now. I think I've turned this around. My mission is to teach what he taught me to 1 million people in 10 years. And when I was with Tony, I mean, he said, make a big goal, right? You don't have to figure out how to do it, just make it. So I made this big goal, and this is one of the ways I'm going to do that, is hopefully sharing this book, these lessons we all have. Nothing new, like you said. This is passed down. It's the way it triggers. This is one of the reasons I wrote the book the way I did. Because what I realized in writing this book, I knew what Bill taught me. I really went back to that. When I realized is that my mother taught me the same lessons. But I didn't listen to her. It was too close to me. I needed somebody else to really come in and sort of give me a different perspective on it and really woke me up. So because I think everybody in the world is going to have that defining moment. That moment that something's going to happen. And are you ready for it? And I think everybody is ready for it, but can you pull it out? Can you really pull it out? Do you have the certainty in yourself, the belief in yourself? You know what? There's defining moments. Can I do it? People who really can do it have the belief. You know what? I was here for a reason, a purpose, to serve other people. That I have to do it. The statement my mother always hated. And I told Brady, I think I shared this with you. That's when I said I can't. And I tried to get up that ladder, that lifeboat, on that ferry. And I heard my mom say, you can't, you must. Her words she hated most in life was can't, but she never let us say it. So I think everybody's got that worldview. Somebody's got a worldview that in that moment, right, you hear that in the back of your mind, like, you know what? I can't. My mother always said, if I can't do it, I got to do it. I think everybody's got that when the defining moment comes out.
I'm fascinated, Amelia, that what Dave did is he spent so much time on the new book looking back. And I'm not sure, Amelia, I can't recall another author that we've had on that really has spent that much time. I did it with my first book, as you know, Dave. I mean, I evaluated everything I did and kind of put it into the present. What did you learn about you from spending so much time looking at your past? And I'm not just like me. I'm talking when you were a teenager. I'm talking your past. What did that teach you? To me, it was fascinating when I did it. And so I want to hear what you have to say about the process.
I think there's many things I learned. If you narrow down to one thing, it's like everything happens in your life for a reason and purpose. Everything comes into your life. People come into your life for a reason. When I came into each other's life for a reason and purpose. I think that's what really came out. And Amelia, you said something a moment ago. It triggered something with me because you're right. I mean, you look back and you have all the people that teach you these things, and there was a moment during the crash when, all of a sudden I had to swim. And, I learned to swim when I was 6 years.
He's still back.
And
I think we
Did
lost
anyone
Mike.
else lose Dave? I lost Dave's voice. Did anybody else lose him?
Tony, we lost it over in Clubhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I lost him as well. I don't know why. I hear all of you guys, so everything's still straight on this end.
Is Dave still in Clubhouse?
I think he may have dropped off Clubhouse. I don't see him on Clubhouse.
He's not on the stage.
He's not on the stage, so he just dropped off. Hold on. Let's just make sure, Dave, if you can hear me through StreamYard. There we go.
Yeah,
Yeah, he
sure
can.
He can.
He's coming back in. I'll look for him to bring
it back up.
Can I ask you, Amelia, since we're waiting, are Dave back?
Yep, Dave's back.
Oh, good. Well, please continue, because you were.
Well, I was going to say,
Put in there right now, we need to then go to what current day activity prompted you specifically to write the new book. Because that's really important. So please finish your looking back answer.
Yeah, and so looking back, and Amelia really triggered this for me, is in that moment when I had to swim, and unfortunately my parents made me learn how to swim when I was 6 years old. But what really triggered was, why did I do it? Why did I have to jump? And it came back to when I was 12 years old, when I was in Boy Scouts, going for Order of the Arrow Award. And part of that weekend activity, all like Survivor on steroids, is we had to get across a river. We could have walked across the bridge, but we swam. I'm like, it was at the moment. Because I think all these moments came in your life. When I was 12 years old and 36 years later, I used the same skill to have the certainty to be able to do it. So sometimes there's things that happen in your past that resonate in your brain that are not conscious or subconscious that will come conscious in that moment.
Isn't that so beautiful that the 12-year-old you was sitting there being groomed for a moment that you could never have envisioned at 12? Like if somebody would sat down and said, your adult self is going to do this heroic act, you would have laughed. You would have laughed. And I just think that when we can adopt the mindset that everything that we're doing in this moment, everything we're doing today is for a greater purpose in the chain of life. And so when you have a lazy day or an unproductive day or a day that has absolutely no purpose, you're robbing our future.
You can't waste a day. That's one thing after you survive something, and people survive cancer, car crashes, plane crashes. All of a sudden, once you realize that, it's like, I can't waste another day because life is so precious. And what's going on overseas in Ukraine right now? How quickly things happen in life. You got to take action. You got to make every day count.
I want to make another observation, and I really didn't do this on purpose, but this goes right into Genius Key. Because the thing that hit me the most, as you may recall, I shared when I took the Genius Key, when I took the questions and went to the process, so many of the questions in Genius Key were about what were you like younger? And I got to the end of it, I called back, I said, wow, little Rainy and big Rainy have a lot in common. I mean, if I had paid more attention, I wasn't really all that different. And so many of the answers I gave to what I would have been like as a child, when I was like, very much worth. I could see exactly how that is an adult. So that was fascinating. But I do have a segue. What did you do? What happened to you this year that really was the catalyst for this new book?
Yeah, so I was. Thanks, Randy. I was writing the book, but what happened was actually about a year ago and 2 weeks, about the first week of April, when I was standing at Newark Airport and getting ready to catch a flight overlooking the Hudson River. I got a call from a friend who's a captain in the Navy, and she said she was going to do the Navy SEAL swim, and she'd asked me if I would want to do it with her and go back in the Hudson and get some redemption from the Hudson. And I said, that's interesting. So I talked to her. I can't
even imagine, though. There's just, I know myself really well. I don't think so.
Well, I had the question. I talked to a SEAL, and, I really had to get my mindset together. But I committed to do it because I'm going to raise money for homeless vets. very close to the military. I love the military. They're the do for us. So I thought I'm all in, but I needed to get the strategy right. To find my who. And I had to find. So it took me 100 days. I hadn't swam since 1979. But on August 6th, with Suzanne, we went back in the Hudson River. And I swam 3.1 miles from New Jersey to the Statue of Liberty, to Ellis Island, to New York, to the 9/11 Memorial. We ended up. But what happened, Randy, is this. This is why I delayed the book and I started writing, committed to the book. It was about 400 meters out from New York. We were just outside of Ellis Island, heading in, and it's cold water, and she and I are together. And I couldn't see her for a second because the waves were coming. It was very, as you know, the Hudson River, fast currents. And I yelled out to Suzanne, and she said, "I'm here." I said, "I love you." She said, "I love you back." And that was the moment that I realized I was filled with gratitude, because that's the moment I realized, Amelia and Randy, that it took a lot of people in my life to get me to where I was at. And I not only had redemption, but this time I left on my terms. And so many people never go back. They face traumatic life experiences, they don't go back, and they let somebody else determine the terms they leave on. But I was going to leave the river this time on my terms. And I had so much gratitude. This whole thing was about giving thanks to something bigger than myself. All the people that have come in our lives have added to that moment. And that was 400 meters, and we get it done. So I think that's the moment I stepped back and said, okay, we're going to complete this book. We're going to get it done, because everybody, because last 2 years, as we all know, it wasn't just about COVID.
Right.
It was about social justice questions, police, the election that kept going on and on. The turmoil of everybody just kept stacking. So people are so encumbered with turmoil. And I want people to understand there is a strategy. There's ways to get out of turmoil. And that's what this book's about. And it's my commitment to fulfill my promise to Bill, my mentor, that I would not let it die with me. So this is the reason I wrote it, Randy. This is the reason I had to commit and get it done, and added the Hudson River swim back with the elite Navy SEALs to make it happen.
What do you think Bill would say after he read it?
He would say, "Well done, young servant." He would say, "Well done." I think he'd be proud. I think he'd be proud of me, not for the writing. He'd be proud of me that I took action on it. I didn't let it die. My actions for the last 40 years have led up, right? That action on January 15, 2009 was not a culmination, but it was like sort of a proof that, you know what? If you do the right things, if you take action on everything you learn in that defining moment, you'll come through. And more importantly, impact and help other people. I think that's
the other thing that I really noticed, which is an observation. If you didn't write the first book, this next book would not have the impact. That it was done in the right order. Yep. And although the notes that you've had them first, but when you speak to everything in its due time, I think you nailed that.
Yeah. Well, thank you, because you're the second person to make that observation. My current mentor, Don, made it to me when I showed him these notes. And I called him, he lives in Atlanta. I said, "Don, let me share this with you." I shared these notes. He goes, "God doesn't give you the lesson until you're ready. You were not ready. You're ready now." And that was the impetus. In life, God tells you when you're ready, right? It's not your plan, it's somebody else's plan. And he'll tell you, it's like, all right, January 15, 2009, it's like, this is your moment, right? This is it. Do it, right? And so I wasn't ready in 1997. Yep, I wasn't emotionally, probably, mentally, ready to do what I'm doing right now. But he put me in that situation, because as I told you, Amelia and Randy, I wasn't supposed to be on that plane. I was supposed to be on the 5 o'clock flight. Why would I be on that plane in that seat? January 15th, seat 15A, 1549. Something was lining up. And I think that's right. You're right. You know, if I didn't do Moments Matter, I wouldn't have found these notes probably for another time. And who knows?
I don't think this will embarrass you, Dave, but I got to point something out. I'm sliding into 60. I'm 59, sliding into 60. To point out, do you mind sharing the age you were at the time you chose to train with Navy SEALs to get back in the Hudson River? If we want to applaud the fact that you did it, for one thing, the first thing everybody asks is, how do you ever get back on a plane? And I believe you were back on a plane the next day.
Yep.
But now you get back in the water. At what age did you choose to train with
60. 60.
Puts a new light on it.
I was the fourth oldest. I was the fourth oldest. The oldest was 77. And he was an Army Ranger. And I talked to him, and he said this is the hardest thing he'd ever done in his life, including being in Vietnam, being an Army Ranger.
Well, it was frustrating because there was a live stream of the event too, Amelia, and the live stream wasn't working well. Because Dave said to me, I'm trying to watch the live stream, so I'm trying to see everything that's happening because kudos to you for every single time someone who has experienced maturity, how nice am I saying that, is willing to still do something that is that physically challenging as well. I could never do it. It's not even an option. So kudos to you for taking that on as well.
Thank you. I was honored to do it and honored to raise money for homeless vets. You know, I mean, that's a crisis right now. There's a lot of crises going on, but there's so many homeless vets right now, especially. And I was just honored to be asked to be able to help raise money for them. So thank you.
What was the biggest challenge for training for that? Like I'm trying to put in my head, I'm trying to train right now to run a Spartan race.
Yep.
And the wall and I do not get along. I just tell you right now, which I have come to the awareness I have zero upper body strength. So that's something that, again, at my age is not easy to do, but I will. And the other thing is the endurance part, the endurance of the energy to go through that race. And so I'm meeting my own physical challenges of what I have to focus on. So when you're training for that physically, what was the hardest part versus being 25 and doing it?
Yeah, great question. First thing I did was, and it's something I learned years ago, is you got to find your who for your how. I had to find somebody, right? I had to find somebody. I fortunately had a world-class coach who coaches aspiring Olympians, and she took me. But she was like 5 a.m. So, I mean, sometimes you just probably find out 5 a.m. in the morning. You don't be out there doing that, right? And you don't be out in the middle of the lake at 5 a.m. in the morning. But you realize it goes back to step one. You got clarity of your mission, and that clarity of your mission will drive you, even though your body's aching. You don't want to get out of bed. Your stomach's hurting. Your head's hurting. It starts with the clarity of mission. Here's the steps. Clarity of mission. Now I know it. Second, find your who for your how. Third, take massive action every day, which I did at 5 a.m. every day. Fourth, you have to have focused execution. You got to have a game plan. The fifth is you got to all enter it with gratitude. That's the 5 steps to be able to do what you're trying to do, what I've done, what a lot of people have done, and get any goal you want in life. That's the 5 steps. And I employed the 5-step strategy. I teach now in my new talk, 100 Days to Triumph. I did all this in 100 days.
Okay, Randy, you 100 days. You got 100 days. You're swimming something.
I've never asked you this.
Yep.
If this had not happened, what would your life be like today? What do you think it would be like today?
Yeah.
We've never talked about this.
No, I would hate to say that. All these people in my life have come after us for a reason. If this hadn't happened, I'd probably be just selling software again for a big company and living somebody else's dream, making some money for somebody else. I don't know if that light bulb would have gone off. I don't know if I ever would have found the notes. Right? They were stuck so far down my credenza, Randy. I was digging around in old journals, right, to get content for my book. That's how I found the notes. So there's stuff in there I still probably haven't looked at, right? So I would say I would probably be on a pathway like most people are, like somebody else decides not creating my own flight plan. Somebody else creates a flight plan for your life.
Have you regretted it ever? making the change. You have the epiphany. You're on the plane.
No. I have never been happier in my life because, it comes down, like Amelia just said this for a moment ago. Two things. You got to find what you're uniquely gifted at and you're most passionate about. Most people will find one or two, but not both. I found both. I'm very uniquely gifted at teaching leadership, this strategy, and I'm passionate about it. That's why I love it. So, I think I wouldn't have had the life of happiness fulfillment if this hadn't happened.
I'm laughing because I just continue to be amazed by the types of things you're able to say. And I've got to say, Amelia, to me, it comes back again to perspective. When I'm feeling down and I look like I'm Mr. Happy-Go-Lucky. People think I'm happy all the time. I'm not. We all have challenges. And I lean on the Daves of the world, of which I've been blessed to meet other people, to give me the perspective on how good I got it.
Randy, you want to open it up for some questions? Because we've got a lot of people on stage here.
We absolutely need to ask some questions. We can't hog all this time. Who's the question for Dave?
By the way, this is Tony. I just wanted to say one thing that you said before, and it's so brilliant that what you learned from Bill were things that your mom has been telling you for years growing up. And I think that the perspective on that, and we've all had those light bulb moments, like we've heard something 10, 20, 30, 40 times, and somebody tells you, you're like, oh my God, of course. And then you repeat that back to who's been telling you that for 20, 30 years, like, what are you talking about? I've been telling you that for almost 20 years.
Yep.
But until you're ready to receive the message, you're not even going to hear it.
Right.
It's not going to click. It's just going to take that one person at the right time and you going through that right challenge or being in the right mindset and being open to the learning. Really having your listening open, right? So it's all about opening up people's listening to receive your message. So I think that was brilliant. I just wanted to say that. And again, I commend you for everything that you've done in stepping into that hero that you are and that you have to be. And, I feel I'm part of Tony's world. I'm one of the trainers for him for the last several years. I'm sure we crossed paths.
Sure we have.
Brilliant. I'm loving this interview. And thanks again for coming in and sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah, how comfortable are you with that hero moniker, Dave?
I'm not. As you can tell, I'm not comfortable with it at all.
I can see his face.
Yeah.
People I know that's not something really.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable with it. But thank you. I'm very honored to be thought of that way.
Well, we all have to be the hero in our lives, right? You're the hero of yours. You have to step in and be a hero for someone else when they need it, right? So we all have that in us. It's just about it's what you're made of, right? And, when you guys the right juice came out, right? So
Thank you.
Questions for Dave? It's always the first one that we have to wait for a little bit. This is not a shy group of people.
I see a question up here, and it says, are you on your own flight plan or somebody else's?
You're actually reading that online.
That was me quoting.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
Because I think that's a brilliant one. So I'm just trying to pick it up. I don't think very fast.
Okay.
I'm trying to pick up as many of your lines as possible and dropping them in for everyone to see who's watching on live stream.
Thank you.
Well, no, that's one thing that we actually hasn't come up, and people hold on your questions. We want that, but he does actually talk about personal flight plan a lot.
Right.
He's used that specific example in his work, which I think is because we all want to soar. We all want to fly. There is that metaphor, and that really works for me from that standpoint, Dave. That's always been something of yours that I find myself going back to a lot.
Thank you.
Everybody seems to want to fly, but few are willing to take the jump.
That's right.
Yep. And there's that quote that says, the bird doesn't stay on that little thin branch because he trusts the branch. He just trusts his own wings. So you want to fly, you got to jump.
That's right. Cool. All right.
Dave, I have a question for you, Chair, up here at the top.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have communication with any of the passengers from that flight? Like, do you have communication with them, your weekly, monthly? Do you check in with them? Do they connect with you?
There is a group. There is a group, and I'm interactive on the group. But there's one passenger that he and I get together every couple of months. He was a gentleman who was actually the first passenger out. And if you saw the movie Sully, he's the one that jumped out the first class door and started swimming. And we spent the hospital together. We were the only two passengers that stayed the night in the hospital. His name's Barry. So he and I have become very close friends. He actually retired right after this. He's like, I'm done. I'm retiring. I'm going to live my life. He went and climbed all these mountains and everything else because he wanted to live his life. So, but yes, I interact with the passengers, especially around the January 15th timeframe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions? And I'm like, well, you know what? I've got plenty. So, Dave, I'm reading the back of the book.
Yep.
How would your life? This is related to the book, but I think it applies to just bring it up and discuss it. How would your life change if you knew the pathway from turmoil to triumph? How does that apply to you? How do you briefly? The book does this.
Yep.
I ask you your very own question, and send it back to you. How do you answer it?
Yeah, I would say, back, I don't think anybody literally knows the pathway up front before something happens, but the pathway is revealed to you as you're going through the journey, as you're going through the challenge. So, but what if you did? What if you knew there's a strategy like I just laid out? What if you knew there was a strategy that you can go from turmoil, whatever challenge you have in your life, into a victory? Why don't you? Because one of the things, as Tony probably knows, as Tony says, right? It's there's nothing new here, right? There's really nothing new here. But what if you knew the strategies up ahead? How could you model somebody else's strategies to be able to compress decades into days? And that's what I'm trying to accomplish in this book. Because Bill basically compressed 13 years of what I learned with him and 13 years with Tony into this. So if you could just take one thing out of this book, right? How could that change? Like one of the things I write about in this book is the ability to maintain composure in times of crisis. Because a lot of people lose their heads. A lot of people get emotional. They start thinking irrationally. They get bad outcomes. But what happened? This happened in your life when you had to maintain composure when all stuff's breaking loose. And that was one of the things Bill taught me. Because there's times in your life when things are going to break loose and you have no control. But you got to keep your head. People who keep their heads are able to be more rational and make the decisions they need to make. Be resourceful.
Tony, can we pin the link to his book up at the top?
Am I correct, Dave? Right now, it's exclusively available on your website, correct?
Correct. Yes.
I'll type it in and I'll make a link for it up top as well. So you can just tell me what it is.
Yes, DaveSandersonSpeaks.com. Thank you, Randy. Thank you.
I have a question for you. This is Carrie. I'm at the top.
Hello, Carrie.
Hi. First, thank you so much for being here. Your story is amazing. I remember seeing the movie years ago, and then this past winter, my family visited New York, and we took the tour to the Statue of Liberty, and I just remember thinking, I cannot believe this actually happened. So it's just an incredible story, and I'm so impressed with everything that you've done since then. My question is there something, because it seems like now you figured it all out, and maybe you have, is there something that you still want to learn or conquer, and if so, who would you go to for that knowledge?
Yeah, that's a great question because, something happened this week that you just triggered something that happened this week. And it goes back to what's happening in Ukraine right now and the tragedies going in Ukraine. And someone I was in Canada at a meeting. And someone came to me because they recognized me. They said, "Can you help me?" I said, "I don't know if I can help. She's very involved. She's Ukrainian and needed help." And I was able to make some connections for her to get her to somebody who could actually help somebody over there. Her sister's just got out into Poland. And her sister's now trying to go back into saving people. So I think, one of the things I think I'm really focused on right now is how I can help people who are really, life-threatening situations. How can I use my connections, my network, my abilities, my strategies, whatever it may be, to help those people? And so that happened this week. And, first I'm thinking, how could I help somebody who's in Ukraine and all of a sudden the light bulb and resourcefulness went off. We started making the connections. I mean, Carrie, it happened early. It happened during COVID. I was on a phone call with a gentleman at a hospital in Florida. I said, "How can I help you?" And he sort of chuckles at me. Well, I really need his mask. I said, "Okay, hold on." So I made 2 calls. I found somebody who knew somebody who was making masks, N95 masks domestically in Indiana. And all of a sudden, they got masks coming to Florida because they couldn't find masks. And it's all because it's like, so you got to get your mindset of resourcefulness going. And that's what I think I'm pretty good at right now. Is, you know, if someone's in a challenging situation or pain, let me figure out through my connections to strategy how I can help solve somebody's problem with them to help them get to a better place. I think that's hopefully that answers your question.
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Can I tell you something else, Dave, that may surprise you? I have not watched the movie.
Wow. You got to watch it. I'm in the movie.
No, let me tell you why. I have not watched the movie because it's a fictionalized version of what really happened to you.
I cried. Oh my God! It's. If you don't believe in humanity after you watch that movie, I don't know what will.
But I believe in Dave Sanderson, and I experienced this in a way that most people don't get. We talked a lot.
Yep, we have.
You've been on my podcast twice. You've been on the show twice. We know each other. And there's 2 books, and so I've experienced it in my head, in my heart, through someone who was there. And to me, it cheapened it a little bit to let Hollywood reach out to me. And I'm just sharing that. I'm curious whether that resonates with anyone. Obviously, Amelia, I think, was going to try to come to the screen and slap me upside.
Listen, Hollywood has done the greatest stories of all time. Right? I mean, look at the Lion, the Wardrobe. Look at Noah's Ark. I mean, we need Hollywood to tell their version of the stories, and that's why they're told in so many different ways. Now, you may like or not like the way they tell the story because you know the originator. But what I'm telling you is those are the stories we need to support. If not, we get all that nonsense stuff that's out there that is not serving anybody. This perspective of Dave's story, hope rises, connection rises, humanity rises, right? All the things that we're missing in society, whether you like the way they did it or not, it does rise within you to realize there's only one out of hundreds of people that needs a redo. Most people's heart are pure and good. And when you allow yourself to see that, and I think this movie did a beautiful job in doing that. And I would like to see more of this content produced than some of the other nonsense that I see. But that's just an Ameliaism.
Oh, no. And I agree with everything you're saying. Absolutely everything. For me, it was
So, Randy, we're going to the movies? You're going to the movies?
Oh, no, I'm going to see the movie. I have to see the movie now.
Randy, I'm in there. I got 3 cameos. You got to watch it now.
We movie shamed Randy.
I always try to throw something into these conversations to get people going. It's usually something I haven't done or have never said. I just have not been ready to venture out of Dave's interpretation because Dave's interpretation of the event is so professional, special to me on a personal level.
Thank you.
So, and I think it's, for me to be on the receiving end of that, Dave, is very special.
Well, thank you.
But now I will watch the damn movie. I've been shamed publicly. And I'm so worried about shamed publicly because this is
I thought Clint Eastwood did a fabulous job. I like. I mean, the guy's 85 plus years old. He's still doing movies, man. The guy got it right, you know. So.
More questions?
Questions?
We got 10 more minutes.
I'll ask a follow-up because I love what you're doing now as far as looking for ways to help. Can you verbalize, because I have my own version of what that means, but can you verbalize in your words where that comes from?
You know, I think it really came from my mother. I mean, I look back at it, and my mother was always a giving soul. She would, if there was a kid walking up and down the street and it was lost, she would take him in and make sure that little kid was found and taken care of. I just think, my mother taught her kids to do the right thing. And the right thing is to me, is you take care of other people first. Like Randy said, we're all blessed to be here right now. I shared this story last week in Richmond, Virginia. It's like 600,000 plus Americans aren't with us right now. We should have so much gratitude that so far God's given us the opportunity to survive this thing and have the opportunity to do something with it. And so I think I'm very candid. Prior to my college years, I wasn't that way. I was very selfish. I was very significant to myself. But I think, when someone comes to your life, opens your eyes, and it really goes, Randy, if you read the book, is the story about when we lost our child. And then Bill shared with me a story, how he lost his child in the Korean War. And he could have done something about it, and he didn't. And when he told me that story, I'm like, I started questioning myself. Could I have done something to help save our little boy's life? But it was God's will, not my will or Bill's will. And that's the lesson about having faith that something bigger is playing in play than this. So I think, to answer your question, is like, there's so many people in pain right now. And I just got off the phone with my wingman. She's going through some challenges right now. So we talked for an hour before we got on Clubhouse. If I find somebody who needs help, I'll try to figure a way or find somebody who can help them out of pain.
I love that. The way I'm seeing it in my head, I've heard this said before, I've heard Amelia say this a million times, that it's not confidence it's not confidence that creates action, it's action that creates confidence.
That's right.
And so I
Amen, sister.
Amen.
Yep.
So I had lived through that, and I had done what you did on that day after that plane crash. I would crush life in that moment on with the confidence of, well, hell, if I can do that,
Right.
what else can I do? How else can I show?
That's right. That's exactly right. It gives you so much certainty, if you survive this, right? And I faced one of the toughest situations that can be faced, because one thing you learn in a plane crash is you have no control. You have no control. It's going to happen. But what do you do with it, right, if you survive it? And I think that some people, I don't judge anybody from that plane that day. They had to do what they had to do. I took a different pathway. And you see the background, the American Red Cross, I do a lot of work, because, of human suffering. Their mission is to eliminate human suffering. And that's what I think I've adopted that, and not only working and serving with them, but also in my own personal life and family life.
Yeah, and the other thing, Carrie, you got to remember is, as we look at Dave saying, wow, I have no idea how he survived that. Somebody's looking at your life going, oh, wow, I don't know how she survived that. You never know who's looking. Your story is normal to you, but your story is extraordinary to the people who are watching.
Yeah, that's a very, very insightful statement. Very insightful.
I want to share something really quickly. Go ahead.
I don't want to, but do you allow yourself to take a vacation? Do you allow yourself to not have to relive? Because every time I ask you to tell the story, I realize I'm asking you to relive in a way and share a horrific, experience.
Randy, not real. Every day.
You think of it a lot. Do you take a vacation from it?
I think I have. I think every day something or somebody brings something up. Right? So, what I look at is it's a blessing for me to be able to share how hopefully I've grown from this experience, and how anybody can grow from a traumatic life experience. And hopefully I don't want to sound off myself, but I want to be a role model for people, to show people, hey, you can grow from life's challenges, but there's ways to do it. Hopefully when they come to me, I help impart that.
This is Sally. Sally.
Hey,
Sally.
Sally. Oh my God, I'm so glad you're here.
Oh, thank you. This is such a great segment, and I'm learning so much. And yesterday I have the honor, and Amelia, you know this, of mentoring teen girls in high schools in my community here in Los Angeles. And one of the big lessons that I taught them yesterday, we were talking about changing your mindset, is something that it's like resonating throughout this room, is that 10% what happens and 90% how you react to what happens to you, right? So I was teaching my girls yesterday, and Dave, this is like exactly your life. It's like you went through this extreme situation in life, and this is how you reacted to it. But not everybody that was on that plane reacted the way you did. So I think it's brilliant that you took such a tragic time in your life and turned it into this triumphant. Now I'm helpful. Now I'm all the things that you're doing is so extraordinary. And I think if anyone in this group can hear that part, it's 10% what happens and 90% how you react to it. I think that's a big lesson for me anyway in this room. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you, Sally. One thing you just said is sort of triggers something I talk about now. Because one of the challenges, you're right, a lot of people from that plane crash, I tell people, from that situation still haven't got back on a plane yet. I tell people it's easy to blame events, but if you keep blaming events, you never give yourself the opportunity to grow. You got to stop blaming the events. You have to. And I really started talking about that during COVID because people kept blaming COVID for this and COVID for that, or this, the election. Like, stop blaming the event, right? It's going to happen. What are you going to do about it? How are you going to have an impact from that? Because you can't blame the event forever. Some people do. They never get over it. They never grow. And therefore, they have a miserable life.
Yeah, I love that, by the way, if I can just jump in on that, and just to say, and I see it in you because to answer James' question, Randy's question, is you're speaking from the scar, not from the wound, because you've healed that. You've done the work. You have 13 years with Bill. You've got 13 years with Tony Robbins, so you're probably better prepared than most to handle that situation or the repercussions of it. But you're speaking from the scar, not from the wound. So you can, when you speak from the scar, you're speaking with empowerment and power and strength. When you're speaking from the wound, to round it to your point, sometimes when people, you ask them to share the story, they relive it, they're hurting themselves every time, but I see that you're speaking from the scar, so I commend that. But that's where the work lies in the personal development, is so you can heal that wound. So thanks for that.
Thank you.
Hey, but I got to tell you, I'm talking to the wound. I'm going to admit that because I love. Did you see my face when you said that? That's a great analogy. But I'm talking to the wound. I still, every time we talk about it, I see myself or cannot imagine myself in that scenario, and I feel pain for you for having to go through that.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the feeling.
So I'm just being honest.
Cool.
So the website for everyone is DaveSandersonSpeaks.com. The book is called From Turmoil. I think that's a good word. From Turmoil to Triumph by Dave Sanderson. It is exclusively for sale on the website, and I believe are we the first group to actually get access to it?
You are. When you asked for it, I only had 5 galley copies left, and you got one of the 5.
Yes, we did.
So, yeah.
Anyway, so that I believe we are at 11:59, and we want to thank Mr. Dave Sanderson for joining us. Miss Amelia, you just had 3 hours. Are you going to go take a nap?
No, I have 3 more hours ahead of me, so I'm not done yet. But happy Friday, everybody. Dave, I'm That's right.
Absolutely. By the way, I did pin Dave Sanderson's link back up at the top of the page. So if you haven't gotten his book yet, if you didn't have an opportunity to click it before, do go ahead and click it now.
Give us a few days, Tony, because we're updating the website over the weekend with everything new. So give it a few days and check her out. Thank you.
And Dave, I'm back and forth to Charlotte now all the time, so I'm gonna have to catch you in person.
I'll catch you when are you still in New York?
I'm in New York, but I'm bouncing between Charlotte and here.
Let me know. We'll make it happen. I guess.
I
get stopped in Tampa. I get stopped in Tampa every time.
Y'all, I'm in Florida. It's nice here.
Well, come on up. I'll tell you, I'll be in Tampa. Come on up to Tampa because it's hard to get down to Naples sometimes.
Okay, well, you let me know. Maybe I can come to Tampa. Okay,
And
let's
maybe,
go.
yeah, I'll share with you something.
With you and Amelia when and for the record, I did just weekend the Genius Challenge, which is an event that we're holding on April 20 to 29 in Las Vegas. We have some seats left in the audience because we're going to have 300 people live, and we're going to have 5 to 25,000 people streaming digitally. Dave, I'm just going to pass it back to Ryan and say goodbye, but thank you. This was absolutely amazing. Follow Gary's link and click on that Genius Challenge as well.
Awesome, everybody. Happy Friday.
Thank you.
We are still here with the social media show. Nate, where are you?
Dora Maria, what's up? Good morning, my friend.